And first of all, I want to thank Al Heyman, the best manager in the world.
He's the fucking champion of the world! Miguel, man!
Well, lads, that's a new intro up. That's good stuff again, Kurt. Welcome, lads. It's the 98th edition of the Nuthouse Podcast, brought to you by BoxingSalem.com. I'm your host, Andy Patterson. With me today, I've got Alex Morris, Kurt Ward, Steve Wellens of the Irish Boxing Review, and making his bicentenary appearance, Tommy Allen. Yeah, guys, it's been quite a mad few days, actually. You know, we had some fights to look forward to, but some fights were decent enough. But it's all been going off on Twitter and, you know, social media, etc., which we'll touch upon later on. I'm not going to touch upon the Sky card just now because you know, it was kind of sober experience watching the main event in that card, watching the modern day warrior like Katsira's getting destroyed like that. So we're going to leave that one to be a bit later on. But we'll start off with the card from Monte Carlo, which was aired on Channel 5. Stuart Hall put up a very game performance against America's Randy Caballero for the IBF bantamweight title. Steve, I don't know if you saw the fight, mate, but how did you score it? Because Steve Gray put in a 118-110 scorecard, and no, honestly, although it was a very, I thought it was a very competitive, close fight, but I didn't see how Caballero could maybe see it by 8 points. But I'm not saying it's actually shocking, because, you know, I think Barry McGuigan also said as well, as if you look at it, you know, you could have scored majority of those rounds to Caballero, but I felt Stuart Hall deserved a bit more than getting beat by 8 points.
I was more or less in line with the judges who had it wider, to be honest, and I felt like I was being a bit harsh on Stuart Hall by saying that, because he gave a heroic effort, but I thought Caballero was a clear wide winner on the cards. Even though it was a really competitive fight, I just felt he had that extra touch of quality in his work, and he knew when to throw the right punches, and he had the knockdown as well. And I just thought in every round, even though they were close and competitive, he just did that little bit more and landed those few quality shots. So I could see a 118-110, but that didn't reflect on Hall's performance. But I could understand why Steve Gray put that card in. Yeah,
I mean, as I say, I'm not going too daft off it, because, you know, I could see, you know, how the card could be slightly wider, but I felt Hall deserved to be a bit more, be slightly closer on the cards, I think, in my opinion. What next for him, though, Alex? You know, I mean, I think he's obviously going to be hanging on now for potentially the rematch with Jimmy McDonnell, if it's potential somewhere down the line, but practically he isn't going to step down to domestic level now, European level, so I think he's going to be hanging off for the McDonnell fight. If not, is it retirement?
Yeah, I mean, I think Stewie surprised a lot of people. I mean, everyone said that he was very lucky to get the initial title shot that he got, the vacant title against Malinga. But he's really stepped up to the mark, I thought. You know, he's put in really excellent performances against, obviously, Paul Butler as well, Malinga in winning the title, and even last night I thought he did excellently. I'm quite surprised to hear that Steve had it so wide for Caballero. I actually had Hall winning, but only by a small margin, by 114-113. I thought that there were a lot of very, very close, tight rounds there that could have gone either way, and it wasn't... You know, I wasn't shouting robbery or anything. I thought that, you know, Caballero easily could have won that. You know, he knocked him down. He did a lot more effective punching. I thought it was a very good fight as well. You know, it was quality work by both men. There wasn't too much clinching. There wasn't too much elbows or anything. It was just good, solid in-fighting work. And you know, I thought Hall maybe just edged it. Maybe I got a bit emotional and, you know, supporting him a bit too much. But it's hard to say where he goes from there. I mean, obviously the McDonnell rematch payday will be an option for him eventually if Hearn wants that. It might be a bit risky because, like I said, I think Hall really has stepped up to the mark of being quite a dangerous fighter, really. I mean, he never really gives up. He's obviously a very big lad. He's very strong. And he just constantly puts it on people. And I think he could really do that and give McDonnell some big troubles if that fight does get made. And it should get made, you know, but it's all about if Hearn wants to protect his pathetic little paper belt.
Kurt, was there no problems in the past? It was about Dennis Hobson and Eddie Hearn. So, would that be potentially, if it is a problem there, would that maybe veto that fight?
Yeah, well, they Hobson hates him, to put it, mildly. I mean, he doesn't like him at all. He believes he stole, McDonnell off him, and it's going to be tough to make that fight, I think. And yeah, there's a big dislike there. I don't think from Hearn's point, but for Hobson definitely. I mean, he was interviewed with iFilm London, and he made it clear that what he thought of Eddie Hearn. But in terms of the fight, I mean, personally, I had it close as well. I had it 115, 112, and I think Caballero spent the first half of the fight fighting the way Hall wanted him to. If he had moved around, it probably would have been easy. I mean, to be fair, I thought Caballero would win comfortably. No disrespect to Hall. He's a tough guy who will keep going, but he's fairly limited. But in Caballero, basically, staying in the middle with him, it enabled Hall to, get off his shots and have a lot of success, even though he was dropped early. I thought it was him who was, fighting the fight that he wanted, and at the end, I think Caballero did start moving more, and he did get the win that he deserved. But I think Hall put up a great effort, and like I said, I was expecting him to lose comfortably. So there's still fights out there for him, and someone like Stewie Hall, I think it's nice to see him getting some good paydays before he calls it a day.
Tommy, mate, you got anything you want to add to us? I know you've never seen any action this week, but I kind of feel kind of bad having to leave you out for maybe 20-30 minutes while we review all this shit.
I just want to say that if Eddie Hearn wants to make the fight, he doesn't care about who's under contract, but he'll just nick the fighter and make the fight anyway, won't he?
Well, I dare say we can touch upon that. I mean, I know there's a couple of callers wanting to get on, want to discuss certain comments by Mr. Hearn in the press recently, so I dare say we'll get them on and we'll let them air their views. Just to let the listeners know, is if you want to do call in, just add Box and Salem Pod on Skype and Kurt will get you through. We'll hope to try and get you on roughly in the next, maybe say 20-30 minutes. We're going to review the card, all the cards first, then before the Twitter questions we'll get you on to make your point of view. On the top of that event though, guys, Martin Murray against Domenico Spada, 7-round technical decision, which is fair enough, but guys, he's signed up now finally to fight Golovkin. Martin Murray has, but to be honest, if you look at it, Crystal Darren Barker dealt with Spada far more comfortably than Martin Murray did.
Just wasn't a very good performance at all, was it? I mean,
It's the last 3 fights, mate.
Yeah, it was one of those performances, like when the referee or the doctor stops a fight due to a cut, you're pretty pissed off as a fan because you want to see more. In this case, you were applauding the decision, to be honest, because it was just a shitty fight. Murray, he doesn't look up for it at all. And like you said, since he's gone to this African promoter, Golden Gloves, I believe they're called, he's made a lot of money out of this deal, and he just hasn't looked. He's lost the momentum of the Martinez fight, even though he lost. He pushed him close with some thinking he won. He had a lot of momentum, and he just, for whatever reason, promotional issues, whatever, he just stagnated. And 3 fights in a row where he hasn't really done anything. And to be honest, he's a rated guy, and I don't think you can have a problem with a fight with Golovkin. But in reality, what is he going to offer Golovkin? I mean, I like Murray, but he's a solid, strong middleweight, but offensively he's not going to offer much. He's one-paced. He doesn't punch very hard, and I don't see what he's going to offer. He won't win the fight, no way.
Alex, is it more a case maybe Murray just fighting down towards the level of his opposition? When he claimed that he couldn't get up to fight Kaminsky, that was another 8-round. I think it was an 8-rounder. I think pretty poor performance in that one. Also, I mean, you saw him push Martinez close-ish type of fight against Sturm, which I did feel that Sturm did enough to edge that fight. So it must be more a point, is he just fighting towards the level of his opposition here, surely?
Yeah, I think I've always said that about Murray. I think he's a very lazy fighter in the sense that, even in a competitive fight, he'll be very lazy in the early rounds. He'll start feeling his opponent out a bit, but he definitely really doesn't get up for the lesser fights in his mind. He's only in it for the big paydays, I think, and the big fights, so he can cash out. We've interviewed him before, and he's always said that it's a job to him. He's not a big boxing fan, and I think he shows that in the way he fights. He's out there, he's trying to be just a professional, I suppose, but you can't knock too much, but it's not good for a viewer as a fan's point of view, especially when he's turning in pretty poor performances, and you really don't want to see a man who's turning in poor performance after poor performance against mediocre opposition really get the title shots and the opportunities that Murray's getting. But does he have that hidden talent? I think he does, but I don't think that we'll get to see it against Golovkin because Golovkin's just going to smash him up.
Well, Steve, you heard what Alex says. He's going to smash him up, but Murray's quite a big middleweight. Do you see Murray lasting the distance? Can he cause Golovkin problems?
No and no. I think you said Murray's quite a big middleweight. I thought that too. I thought he looked heavy. I'm not saying he was over the limit. I'm sure he wasn't, but he looked heavy. He looked sluggish. He looked demotivated by the whole thing. His fights just don't inspire me at all. They're so insipid, and he just looks like he doesn't want to be there, and he doesn't give you any reason to want to watch him fight. He doesn't bring you into the fight at all, and the most activity shown by either of them was Sparta screaming at the camera at the end of it that it shouldn't have been stopped, but we know what Sparta's all about. He chucks the head in, and he is quite a dirty guy, but Murray dealt with him pretty well. But I think Alex is right. He's the type of guy who needs a challenge, he needs to get up for a fight. But getting up for Golovkin is just a completely different proposition. He's showed against Felix Sturm and against Sergio Martinez that he can handle it at world level, but Golovkin's just a completely different beast altogether from those two guys. Both sort of faded on the way down, world-class operators. Golovkin's only going one way, and that's up, and I think he'll knock Murray out in about 8 rounds.
Who of the current middleweights are realistically who will fight Golovkin? Do you think Murray has the best chance of seeing a 12? Because personally I do, to be honest.
Yeah, I was thinking the same. I mean, I think I posted on Twitter when the fight was announced straight after the fight on Saturday. I did think that Murray could maybe push his fight late, but some are
is Murray trying to win that fight, or is he just shelling up?
Well, that's it as well.
He's just shelling up.
Yeah, once you feel the pain and the power. It's going to be a matter of, like, say, what Beko did against Grigon, though, is just going to cover up and maybe just try and see out the fight as much as possible. But
I
then
don't
again,
think he can't keep Golovkin off him, can he, though? I mean, I just can't see it. He'll just be a sitting duck. I don't see anything he has to keep Golovkin off him.
Yeah.
He's just going to have the high guard, and Golovkin's going to target the body. I mean, how long before the high hands start to come down, and is he going to be able to take the body shots, to be honest?
That's the one as well. Now, Alex has just popped away there for a brief moment, so we'll go on to the Elder Alvarez fight against Rhino Leibenberg. Guys, no, honestly, Leibenberg complete and utter shit. Alvarez just showed that he was a class above him, basically just took him apart. I was actually glad the fight did get stopped after 7 rounds on a technical, was it a cut, I think it was.
Nasty cut.
Nasty, yeah, it was right above or just below the eye, I think it was.
Above the left eye, yeah, it was a bad one.
It was a pretty bad one, so I dare say that Alvarez will now be next in line to face the winner of Stevenson against, who's that guy he's fighting?
Sokotsky,
aye. He was meant to be fighting Cleverly at one point, wasn't
he?
Yeah. So that's Alvarez now. Alex, you back, mate? Obviously not. Did anybody see the Hickey Butler against Zhong Zhao Song fight?
Yeah.
Great
tell me. To it.
Two judges had it 114-112, one had it 118-108, and that was with both of them being dropped.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Butler, during the second half of the fight, he started his talent, showing through, and he ran away with it a bit in the end. But the first half of the fight, it was just, shocking to see him in trouble, and the other guy, dropping him obviously, but it looked like it, could be a fight of the year after a few rounds. But I just think it started to fade a bit in the fact that Butler, was obviously the more talented guy, and in the end it shone. But I don't know what happened to him at the start. Whether he didn't take him seriously, or he was a bit rusty. I don't know, but he just seemed to be shocked by him at the start of the fight.
Talking about maybe the unification fight with Butler and Francisco Rodriguez Jr., so that might be a good enough wee fight. I've not seen the fight. I have got a copy of it, but I had reached out to Hickey Butler to try and do an interview with him a couple of weeks back, but obviously he was in training for this fight. Moving on, guys. Alex not back yet, but we also we'll go to the heavyweight fight from Russia, Alexander Povetkin. Pretty decent. It was a decent enough fight, actually. Great finish. I think it was a 10th round stoppage. I think it was a really kind of nip and tuck fight for a few rounds, and then
great left hook.
Just basically vaporised them.
I just saw it on the website there.
Kirk, your thoughts on it, mate? I mean, obviously, I think that's him now kind of confirmed. He is in the top 3 heavyweights in the world just now, Povetkin.
Yeah, I mean, he was looking in trouble early on as well. He seemed to be getting hurt quite frequently by Takam, which you don't really see that from Povetkin. He's got a good beard, but he staggered around a couple of times, and I just think Takam, he's a talented guy, but his engine isn't the best. And after about 6 rounds, I mean, saying that Povetkin's he's not known exactly for his stamina, but after 6-7 rounds, I think you could see he started to fade, and Povetkin was really landing some hard lever on him. And I mean, the finishing, the knockout was fantastic. And Povetkin has shown, he's dealt with everyone else apart from Vlad, and he's looking to go that WBC route. Whenever Stavern can defend the title, and he'll be looking to get that. The winner of that fight over to Moscow, or Bryant Jennings, or whoever can hold that title, and he'll be looking to get hold of that title and maybe have another fight with Vlad for all the titles and another massive payday. But I mean, Povetkin, I think he's one of these guys. He can look like he's not interested, and he looks like he hasn't taken the opponent seriously. But I think on his day, he's still the best guy in the division. Probably not named Klitschko in my opinion.
Yeah, I just think if he had the stamina, the conditioning, I think he would be, I wouldn't say unbeatable, but he'd actually be, more a physical force than what he actually was against the likes of Klitschko. Now, I don't speak much Russian, but I think I heard it right anyway. I think he's actually wanting a rematch with Klitschko. I don't know if that's right.
Give a rematch to Huck.
Yep, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that'd be a good fight. Especially for, I always felt that maybe they may just go for, with Huck, they might just take him down the WBA route and go for, what do you call him, Chagayev, and then maybe get his way into a Klitschko fight by becoming mandatory that way.
Johnny Nelson gets a winner.
Don't need to mention that, I am seething with him actually after the comments on Sky after the Katsidas fight, which we'll come on to a wee bit later on. On that card, Steve, I think you got a chance to see it. I only seen the knockout actually, Rakim Chakiev against Jacob Fragomeni. We did mention last week as he had to finish that job early, look good doing it, because Fragomeni, I think he's about something like 45 or something. Right hook behind the left ear. I think it was a Fragomeni. You impressed anyway in that performance?
I was pretty impressed. He couldn't miss with a right hook on Fragomeni, but Fragomeni has had his day. Remember him fighting David Hay all those years ago on Sky, and he gave Hay a good fight actually. And I know he's been a sparring partner, and he's always been a tough guy around the European scene, but he's never really been able to sort of step up to that world level on a consistent basis. Thought he looked heavy, Fragomeni. He looked sluggish. He was unable to pin Chakiev down or cut the ring off. He was just following him around, high guard. Chakiev, we didn't get to see much of what he has in the locker. He was in first gear all the way along, just popping away at the jab, throwing in the right hooks, and I think Fragomeni went down in the 3rd round, didn't he, from a right hook, and then he just soaked the beating up from then on, and another cuffing right hook in the 4th round, and Ian John Lewis counted him out. It's hard to see exactly what Chakiev's got to offer on a long-term basis from this fight, because Fragomeni's done, but I mean, you can only beat what's put in front of you, and he did the job, so fair play to him.
Yeah, I quite like Shaka, but he does really need to work on his conditioning.
Yeah,
especially against that Vladarchik fight. He was
spent after about 6 rounds, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's a talented fighter too.
Yeah, he's a really good fighter, aye. Guys, I watched the Box Nation card in its entirety, believe it or not, on Saturday. So we'll just rapidly go through it. Now, our young friend from Latvia, now based in Fife, Andres Podzos, he got a 6-round decision against Matty Fagan. He was unbeaten. Liam Williams smashed Stepan Horvath very quickly. I think it was 2 rounds he stopped him in. Did it quicker than Buglione and Eubank. Let's see who else we got. Derry Matthews practically just schooled Adam Dingsdale. He dropped him in round 2 a couple of times. I felt he might have taken him out, but I think Derry's actually found a way now. He's not getting involved in wars. He's thinking his way around about the ring. He's been patient. So he's maybe he's going to get another couple of big fights, I think, still yet. Liam Smith beat Zoltan Zera, overmatched opponent, but he had actually, it was poor, mate. But I think as well as he's out until he was wanting to get out again in December, but he was cut, so that'll be him out for a wee while longer yet. But one fight just before we do touch upon the Thomas Stalker fight, the Paul Butler fight. I get impressed every time I see this guy, but that Mexican kid, that Ishmael Garnica, I mean, tough as fucking nails. How his corner didn't pull him out before the end of that fight, I just do not know, because he just couldn't win it. Did anybody see it?
Yeah, he just took a beating. I'm impressed by Butler. think he does the distance well, doesn't he? He knows how to pace himself. He's got good boxing skills. He's settled down a little bit. He was a bit of a hothead early on in the ring, but I think he's really settled down nicely. Anthony Farnell's got him calmed down, and Farnell speaks very highly of him, and I like what I see of him. The more I see of him each time, I'm impressed by Butler, and that guy took pretty much a beating for the whole 10 rounds, and fair play to him for standing up to it, but it was all about Butler, and I really like the look of him.
And that beating just basically takes years off your career, though, mate. That's it's just unfortunate to see that. But as I say, I'm very impressed with Butler. You know, he had to do the job there. He had to step up again after the world title fight got pulled after Tete broke his hand. So obviously a lot of frustration getting let out there in those first 4 rounds. Kevin Satchel had a kind of somewhat tough fight against Valerie Yanchi. Didn't get it all his own way. You know, Yanchi maybe 37 years old, but showed decent hand speed at times and showed the toughness to kind of stand in there with Satchel. And when Satchel let his punches off, he came back with his own. So Satchel now picks up the European title to add to the British and the Commonwealth title straps as well.
I don't really rate Satchel that highly. What do you think of him? I'm not really a big fan. I saw someone on Twitter said that they'd pick Paddy Barnes to beat both of them on his debut, and I think I might maybe agree with that. I don't rate Satchel.
I seen Paddy Barnes mention on Twitter during the fight actually that it's apparently a lot easier to win a European title at pro level than it is to win it at amateur level, which is probably true actually. No, would you believe me? See the Satchel fight against Ian Butcher. I felt Butcher won that fight. And that's no any Scottish bias or anything. I think Butcher did win that fight by maybe 1 or 2 points. He hasn't been wanting the rematch, but it's just not happening for some reason, which is unfortunate. So we need to try and have a wee chat with Butch to see what's happening with that. Chris Eubank Jr. 2-round blowout against Omar Ciela. You know, it was obviously the conspiracy theorists were talking about, you know, he's going to pull out with an injury, he's going to get intentionally cut, etc. But he's came through it and did say after the fight that even if he did get injured, which he's not, if he did get injured though, he would have still took the Billy Joe Saunders fight. But we can safely say Frank Warren and Billy Joe slept easier on Saturday night. We can say that for a guaranteed fact. But Kurt and Steve, one fighter who's impressed me, and I know he's impressed you guys as well, was Jack Catterall's 8-round performance against Thomas Stalker. Stalker, top amateur obviously, but Catterall, it's the first time I've ever seen him before actually. He was 9-0 at the time, 5 knockouts, southpaw, good power. This kid is going to be a good addition to the domestic scene at light welterweight.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't think Stalker's taken to the pros that well. He's never really impressed me, but having said that, I thought he would outbox Catterall, to be honest, but he couldn't take the power. I mean, that was evident straight away. I mean, before the fight, they said that they sparred and, you know, he hurt Stalker, and Stalker obviously denied it, but I think you could see straight away that left hand was landing and it was hurting Stalker, and the jab in the first 4 rounds, every time he threw it, it was landing. It was, you know, rocking his head back. He was dropped twice early. He just couldn't deal with it, and even though I think Stalker did well to get through that and, you know, come into the fight a bit more, he was still, you know, a long way behind, I thought, and when the stoppage came in, he just couldn't miss with the punches. Stalker's defence, you know, for a top amateur, he's pretty poor, to be honest, and you know, that was a bad loss for him. And you know, even at this early in his career, I know, you know, he's 30 years old, but in his pro career, he's had 9 fights now. It's going to be hard to come back from, you know, that bad beating there, I think. And Catterall is definitely a great addition to the scene, and you know, he's really impressive. 21 years old, and you know, went to the guy's backyard basically, and you know, showed a mature performance in, you know, dominating him, I thought, for most of the fight. Steve,
mate, what's your thoughts on Catterall? How far do you think he'll go? He's 21-year-old, obviously still got a lot of learning, a lot of teaching still. You know, obviously there's a lot to work with there actually, but the power is the main thing. I mean, the finish, the straight left hand that just bounced Stalker right across the ring. Basically, the referee in the corner threw in the towel simultaneously. I think this kid, domestically, I think definitely British champion in the making. I don't know about European level. I think I need to see a wee bit more of him, but definitely British champion in the making there.
Yeah, it's very early to tell, isn't it, with Catterall? I mean, he's 10-0 now with 6 knockouts, and he looks the business. But like you say, this is the first time we've really seen him. He's only 21. Could Stalker have been completely made for him style-wise? I mean, he clearly was. You know, would Catterall have it as easy with other guys at the division? We'll have to wait and see how he copes with other opponents. But he wasn't intimidated by Stalker's amateur pedigree at all. He just hit harder. He's more accurate. And it was a good fight, actually. It was good matchmaking, I thought. This one, he took Stalker's heart early on and showed the confidence of youth, and he couldn't miss Stalker at all, could he? And Stalker's going to take a few steps back now, but Cattrall, yeah, it's early days. He looks like a British champion in the making, but we'll have to see a little bit more of him before I can make a full judgment on that.
All hail Frank Warren for making a competitive fight. Well done, Frank.
Well done, Frank.
What was I going to say, actually, didn't you think... maybe a bit of feedback there. Then you think that maybe stalkers maybe stayed amateur too long, because you tend to see it, they kind of like carry over the bad habits from the amateur game into the pros. You know, you see it with some of the old school guys, maybe like maybe Vander Holyfield. He didn't spend too long as an amateur, but you know, when they turn over, they haven't really learned all those bad amateur traits, so they it's easy to kind of teach them a pro style. And you think maybe he just stayed there too long.
I don't think you should be amateur any longer than 25, 26. You do get into the bad habits, the habits of amateur, and you really need to serve a four-year apprenticeship in the pros before you start going for titles as well, so it's not leaving you much time. I think 25s should be the time you're turning over.
You're right enough there, because see if, like, for instance, like Roberto Camarelli, I think he's like 29, 30 or something like that. Can you imagine, like, you know, a 19-year-old going up against him? He's just kind of, you know, he's got his man strength about him, and he's got all that more experience about him as well. I agree with that. Right, guys, I can't hold it off any longer. We need to discuss the card from the Hull Arena. Who saw the Gavin McDonald fight against Malinga? I never saw it, but McDonald, yes. Did he look impressive in any way? Is he going to be...
Yeah, well, I mean, I thought Malinga would probably beat him. I don't really rate Gavin that highly at all, and I thought he put in a decent performance. I mean, Malinga did look, you know, old in there, and he struggled to get his shots off, but, you know, Gavin, you know, outboxed him for most of the fight, to be honest, and I thought, you know, it was a good performance, considering I think most people would have felt Malinga would prove too much for him in the end. I mean, it wasn't the greatest fight in the world, but I think in terms of just basically making sure you get the win, I think Gavin, you know, did that to perfection, to be honest. He got the win and, you know, looked better another day, but make sure you get the win in what was his probably toughest, you know, fight to date.
Now, Luke Campbell, he was definitely stepping up, I felt, against Daniel Bruzuela. Very clinical performance. Looked like he was right up for it. Very, very kind of savage with his punches for a change. Steve, you know, you and I we've been too vocal, but we haven't been slightly impressed with Campbell thus far. But did he impress you on Saturday?
He did impress me. I hadn't been that fussed with what I'd seen of him so far. I thought he'd been boxing at a lower level, and they took him up a couple of notches against Brizuela. Did feel beforehand that Brizuela would maybe flattered a little bit with the fight with Tommy Coyle. You know, he liked a guy who was going to stand in front of him like Coyle, and the pair of them just sort of had it out for 12 rounds, however long it lasted, knockdowns galore, and it made Brizuela look more of a dangerous opponent than maybe he was, and I thought that someone of Campbell's quality would be able to find the distance and cut him down, and that's the way it proved. I think Brizuela was the perfect opponent for Campbell, really, and he's made that sort of... They've got that comparison between him and Coyle now to add to the matchup that they're looking to make next year, so I think it was pretty savvy matchmaking, and he did what I expected him to.
Alex, you there, mate?
Yeah, man, what's up?
Just asking you just to dive in after Steve there. Tell me, did you think were you impressed with Campbell?
I didn't see that fight. I caught the knockout on the end, but I heard it was a very sort of mature performance. I was just saying in the Mixler chat there, you know, I was agreeing with some other comments, and basically what Steve said. You know, I think Brizuela was a bit flattered by the Coyle fight, and you know, Brizuela was brought in for Coyle as, you know, for Tommy Coyle to beat up and just another guy for him to knock over, but he turned out to be far more competitive and obviously an excellent fight. And, you know, if for someone who's not supposed to, you know, for someone who Tommy Coyle was supposed to beat up and just breeze past, we're supposed to be accepting him as a step up in a big matchup for Luke Campbell, I think it's a bit outrageous. But no, I mean, fair play to Campbell. I do like him. I think he's quite talented. I think he's got quite good strength. He's obviously big for the weight, which helps. I think they just need to get Campbell fighting the rest of the domestic lot, really. I mean, we've got a very strong domestic scene here. I think he needs to be in fights with, obviously, Crawler, Mitchell, Terry Flanagan as well. I think those 3 fights are probably the big ones for him at the moment, and then he should be moving on to possibly world level. And Eddie needs to get out of his head that Tommy Coyle and Luke Campbell are world level right now, because they're really not.
That's true. I mean, you're right enough about the size difference anyway. Brazil looked like a super featherweight against a bona fide, maybe light welterweight there. Tommy, mate, I know you did see the main event. We're going to go into it now. Sad viewing watching a proper warrior like Michael Katsira's getting used as cannon fodder. When the fight was initially made, we had callers on the show here. Paul McAllister have been very, very critical. We were very critical of this fight. Failed brain scans, etc., etc., showing traits of brain damage by. He's been involved with. I think Kurt mentioned last week he's been involved with. Is it a theft or a break-in, Kurt, or something like that?
Yeah, burglary. Yeah.
Yep, so it's not really looking good. I felt like he looked like a man who was walking.
Are we talking about Big Dave here? Talking about brain damage and stuff.
Just as he walked to the ring, I felt he knew he was walking to his own death at some point. He looked kind of somber, but just watching him get stopped like that, knowing and that was 5 years ago. There was no way Coyle was going to stop him with a left hook like that. And just to be honest about it, the warrior that he is, he got up. But I'm glad the referee stopped that fight. I don't care about soft stoppages in that fight. Right to call it off. I'm glad he didn't take a heavy beating. And it's probably wise that he pulled out there after 2 rounds.
Definitely. Actually, Ben catch this in the fight. I'm not really that high on Tommy Coyle. But yeah, I think everybody wanted him to retire after he lost 2 and he moved up to light welterweight, and it's really been sad to come back. He went to distance with Graham Merrill, so you're going to distance with Graham Merrill, it's really no there at this point in both our careers. So I just seen the knockout there and it was pretty sad viewing it. Remember, it reminded me the Danair Montiel knockout when he was trying to ride the bicycle when he was on the ground with the legs going. Yeah. So sad to see Michael retires now. I hope he's actually made a few quid and can live comfortably.
I hope so as well, because there's no future for him in that ring, Steve, is there?
He seems the kind of guy that he actually likes to fight. Well, he's not going to retire, is he? You'll probably see Michael can see this fight until he's 40,
Nah, I think he'll end up talking to Wolves, which is going to be unfortunate as well. Steve's had to pop away there. Kurt, it's got to be retirement now, isn't it?
I mean, the one good thing about that kind of stoppage is it probably will force him to retire, because if he'd gone 12 rounds or had a few good moments, he might still say, I've still got something to offer here. But being stopped like that by a guy who's not really known as a puncher, and no disrespect, but he's not known as anything, despite what Eddie Hearn says, not really looked upon as anything special. He stopped him. He made him look like a killer the way he punched him, and he's got his punch resistance is obviously not there, and he obviously gave it a go like we knew he would. He was trying, but he was landing a few punches, but they didn't seem to have much on him. And it's just, it took him longer to get to the ring than the actual fight, didn't it? To be honest, and it's just a sad way to see him go. But like I said, the plus side is that will probably force him to retire. And you don't want to see him in the ring. He retired before and came back, but I think this time you got to say it's the end. But my fear is he's gonna want a farewell fight in Australia. He'll have that fight against probably some 40-year-old ex-flyweight. He'll look decent in it, and then he'll be back again, and then he'll be brought over for someone else to bash up, and it'll just keep going because
Campbell.
Yeah. Like Tommy said, he's the kind of guy who likes fighting, and I think it's what he loves doing, and it's hard to stop those type of guys. But Luke Campbell would have bashed him up easily as well on Saturday night, no problem.
What about Kevin Mitchell?
Yeah, bashed him up as well.
Well, yeah, I can actually see Eddie getting that rematch made and put it on pay-per-view.
I was just thinking that myself, man. He'll be wanting to make that.
Steve, I'll come back to you. Alex, given knowing what we know about the brain bleed, etc., and he's failed these neurological tests and he's been passed by the British board to fight, was it the right decision to let him go in there? Because at the end of the day is you may pass the tests, but when a fighter just doesn't belong in there anymore.
Well, this is it, isn't it? Is it all about just passing the test? Some people will say, well, if you pass the tests, that's it. James Toney can still pass the test, Danny Williams can still pass the test, but they shouldn't be fighting. But you'll still get people defending them, saying, it's up to them at the end of the day. And what we really need to be asking is, are these tests good enough? Should we be doing more tests? Should there be
Sorry, mate. Sorry.
No, go on. What were you saying?
The words James Tony in passing test should they be mentioned in the same sentence?
Well, it's a mess, really. I mean, the fact that these fighters are still be able to get in the ring. I mean, what are they testing for? Obviously, not testing for the right things. They're clearly not all there, but it depends on the opposition they're fighting. It depends on what they're doing there, who they're fighting. I mean, many of us thought that, yeah, it's all right for him to be only fighting Tommy Coyle. Tommy Coyle not really got much of a dig, but then he still got sparked out last night pretty bad. I mean, all fairness to Coyle, it was a brilliant shot, but we don't want to be seeing that anymore, and I think that should be a hint to anyone, even the board and the people doing the tests, and to Katsidis himself, that he shouldn't be doing this anymore.
You agree with that, Steve?
I do. Whenever I hear the words brain bleed, it makes me queasy, to be honest. The fact that someone's getting just punched repeatedly in the head, it makes me feel uneasy. Even if, as a fan of this sport, I do worry when I see the likes of Katsidis going in there and taking big shots. And I mean, what do we do? Do we put faith into the British Border Control that they've got the fighters' best interests at heart? I suppose you've got to. They haven't let the likes of Franz Botha into the country to fight before. They don't sanction certain titles. They've, been uppity at times about certain things over here, about sanctioning fights. So they do have a pretty strict code of standards, but then they let the likes of Andrew Flintoff into a fight like that. They let the likes of Katsidis and James Toney come along. So is this a standard regulationary thing, or is it just certain people being allowed to fight? I'd like to have faith in the board to think that they are doing the right thing, but you have to call into question their decisions sometimes.
I think you do. I mean, I think Ian Weaver is also the same. He's fighting off an Irish or a Spanish licence.
He's fighting off an Irish licence. Mel Christoph on the BUI said he was happy with the medical evidence that Weaver's team had put forward, and he's boxed a few times off an Irish licence, so doesn't seem to be a problem there. But I mean, of course, if there's this whole ambiguity over the injuries and people's licenses. Now there's these shows starting to crop up. I'm sure you get the press releases as much as I do. Quote unquote unlicensed shows that are being ran by the Maltese Boxing Commission and all this type of stuff, where these guys who haven't been allowed a British license are fighting, under a different, sort of jurisdiction in Britain. I mean, the whole thing, it is, muddying the waters a little bit.
I think you're trained. Any sort of head injury at all, you're really trained on for ice. Even really bad concussions, it's been proven that in later life that that this can seriously affect you mentally. Look at the wrestler Chris Benoit. He had suffered 3 serious concussions, and they reckon he had the brain of an 8-year-old man. And obviously, look what he's done to his family and that. So I think you've got to tread very carefully when it comes to head injury.
Like Chris Benoit you're talking about there, eh?
Chris Benoit, mate. Yeah, if there's any head injuries at all, you'd rather see the fighter not licensed,
Mm-hmm.
It's the fighters themselves that should be looking out for. So, I mean, you said it right. If you've had a bloody concussion, if you've, been put to sleep or whatever, or had really bad, head injuries or brain bleeds, you should question it. Should I really be doing this? Should I be carrying on what I'm doing? I mean, you can question what the board's going to do, but there's no overarching entity looking after boxing. You can just go anywhere. I could go out and fight anyone if I wanted and get licensed somewhere. I've had no training, nothing, but I could probably get licensed to fight someone in some random country, and it's a joke. And no one's going to be looking out for these fighters because they're all looking out for themselves, these boards and these promoters. So what can you do?
Yeah, what can you do? I mean, I really don't know what the answer is. As Steve and Tommy have said, once you start hearing about brain injuries, brain bleeds, etc., you really are into murky waters there. Jermaine Taylor, for instance, how he's been passed fit to fight. That was a serious knockout against Arthur Abraham, and he still got cleared. Look
at Danny Williams as well. I mean, last time he was in a British ring, I believe it was against Derek Chisora. Was that on the Mitchell Katsidis undercard?
He
couldn't take a punch at all. I mean, Derek hit him and he was gone. I mean, 4 years later, he's still fighting overseas, getting blown out in a round because and apparently he's financially secure. He just loves fighting, and it's hard to stop those guys because you expect a guy who carries on fighting like a Roy Jones type is because they have money issues. But when a guy has made the money and he still wants to fight, Muhammad Ali was the same. He still kept fighting, and they still believe they can roll back the years at least one last time, and it just doesn't happen.
How James Toney gets licensed, I'll never know. He was on signs of brain damage back in 2003, 2004. That's 10 years later.
I cannot understand
the word he says. No.
It's unbelievable. I forget what video it was. See if you go back, just go back to watch the Evander Holyfield fight after he gets interviewed. He's actually, even though he's still got the signs of kind of slurred speech, he is actually more understandable there than what he is nowadays. And honest to God, nowadays, I watched him with Kugan Cassius doing an interview. I was like, fuck, I need a translator. I need subtitles for this one.
It sounds like a handicapped Mr. T.
Edit that out.
Can't even live, aren't we?
There's a danger of Roy Jones going the wrong way, but I wasn't, I was put at ease a little bit by his last fight because the way Roy Jones is going now, especially in his last two fights anyway, with this WBU thing, it's more like a tribute act, he's sort of on the road, isn't he? He's not in against threatening opponents, still the crowd are enjoying it, he's not taking any punishment. It doesn't feel as dodgy as these other guys. I mean, at least he's not taking a beating, I suppose.
See the thing with Roy as well, right? He did suffer 2 bad knockouts, but apart from that, and obviously what Sir Joe done to him, he hasn't really taken many punches in his career, has he?
Yeah, but
the thing is with those 2 knockouts, so they were back to back, and they were accelerated, decelerated concussions here because his head fucking bounced off the canvas like a volleyball.
Don't forget the legend Danny Green smashed him inside Lebedev as well. But
the Lebedev one was pure sick.
But the
knocked out standing up.
Smoger hates him.
You want to continue?
I'm convinced Smoger just has a vendetta against him. He just allowed him to just get smashed. He was knocked out on his feet, and he still allowed him to get smashed.
But what combat finish him?
I just think, does anyone get the feeling Eddie Hearn's hearing about Roy Jones and just seeing the Cleverly Value winner pay-per-view, sniffing it over here? I just think I can see it happening.
There was talking cleverly against Roy Jones a few months ago, wasn't there?
Yeah.
5-6 months ago.
I'll tell you what, if he makes that fight, he's not going to be complaining about retweets and tweets and all that sort of stuff. People by his fucking door banging it down. Like, you crazy? Pay-per-view? Are you kidding me?
To be a legend, they'd have to defeat a legend, and Roy Jones would be rapping to the ring. He'd have a rap performance. You'd have a legend. I mean, British fight fans will see a living legend. I reckon it could happen. We just got to see if Roy Jones will be. I mean, he's travelling more now than he ever did in his prime.
Fucking true. That's very true. I think we're getting Rob Palmer on shortly. Anybody who's not been following recent happenings, there's been a divorce in the post. Rob's turned quicker than Hulk Hogan did in WWF wrestling. He's now ardently an Eddie Hearn hater, or not. He's not a lover of him anyway anymore. So he'll be coming on shortly to discuss his views. Very briefly here.
Is Robert the one who's been retweeting all those nasty tweets of Eddie? Is that what he was getting at in that video?
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I think Ed, he looks under pressure just now, doesn't he? I think his pay-per-view stuff's getting to him, actually. I think he's really under pressure. He's had a lot of abuse this week anyway, for what I've seen of it. I think just all these retweets. I think he said that he's only been on Twitter once on Saturday because of all these fucking retweets and stuff. And you need to get a life. And the thing is, you need to get a life if you're abusing this pay-per-view or you're retweeting the tweets, etc., etc. But see, if you're a bum sniff and you're buying his tickets and you're sending him pictures asking for a retweet of those pictures, what kind of life are you leading?
The only thing you should be sending Eddie Hearn is hashtag using other methods.
Right. Team Stream. Team Stream. Robert's on the line. Robert, mate, are you heartbroken?
A little bit, yeah.
What happened?
You know what? I think the reason why I backed Hearn so much is because, I don't know, I just bought into it, didn't I? I just got to admit it now. I bought into it big time. I think the way that he sort of laid out where he wanted to take the sport to was what I always wanted to see happen. So everything that he was doing that was kind of different to the way that Warren or the other promoters was working, I kind of really bought into, because when I looked at at the sport. That's what I thought. That's how I would do things. But I just think, I don't know. I think, yeah.
Be honest. Has it happened because he hasn't handed you a flag bag yet?
No, do you know what? Like that. I mean, that did happen, but that's really not that big an issue. I'm not bothered about that. I mean, I care about the sport, and I just don't really like the way that it's going. It just seems like it's starting to be what I always thought, that nothing sells boxing more than boxing, and the way to get people back into the sport, the way to get those arenas filled, the way to get the viewing figures on Sky is by putting on really good fights. And that's what I thought Hearn was on his way to doing. And in fairness, he did put on some good fights, and I do think that overall boxing is in a better position than it was sort of 6 or 7 years ago. I mean, could you have imagined doing this podcast and the only fight you've got to talk about is Usman Ahmed against Chris Edwards?
Yeah.
You know? But, I mean, since the Wembley show, things have just they've gone sideways. If anything, they've gone backwards. And the biggest disappointment, I mean, it's not about the pay-per-view. I mean, it's 15 quid. You can stream it anyway. But it's the fact that we get 7 shows that are shit to try and make one good one. And this show isn't even, now when you look at it, it's not even that good. I mean, Grove's opponent is fucking dog shit. I couldn't have even imagined him fighting somebody that bad. It's like Rod Salker level, isn't it?
Have you seen the odds? Have you seen the odds for that undercard?
I mean, I'm sure you could probably put on all the sort of, take out the Cleverly Bellew fight. That's really the only 50-50. I mean, I think Callum Smith and De Gale were in decent fights, but other than that, they're all just shit fights. And even something like McDonnell against the guy he's fighting would have made the Leeds card the other week slightly better. Like, why can't you just spread these fights across and have a couple of good nights of boxing rather than just piling them all together? And then they weren't even that good in the first place. It's just a joke.
Who was the guy on your forum now? He's been tweeting back and forward with Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn basically says, "I'll buy a ticket back off you. I could sell 20,000 more." Now that's a bit of a cuntish thing to say, because if you can sell 20,000 more tickets, why not hold it in a big enough arena? And you wouldn't have to put it on pay-per-view, surely.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, where have the tickets gone at the end of the day? They've been bought by touts on StubHub, not by actual fans. You go on StubHub now, there's still like a couple of hundred tickets on there. It's, you know, that's the way that it's going.
Here's the undercard odds. Groves is 1-80, Smith 1-10, De Gale 1-7, and Joshua 1-100, and that's pay-per-view worthy.
Yeah, it's bullshit. And I mean, you can see the people on Twitter. I mean, I don't like bashing the casuals too much, because we was all casuals at one point, and I remember thinking, you know, that I can't remember what fights I was looking at and thinking, oh, that's going to be great. Some of like Nassim Hamed's opponents thinking, oh, this is going to be a tough fight, and it turned out to be, you know, complete bollocks. I mean, Eubank's reign of terror as well, and you kind of wise up over time. So I don't like bashing them too much, but I mean, he's got them lapped up, hasn't he? And they're kind of buying into it. And you see them when they say, what a card, and then they don't list a single opponent. They just list the name of the fighter. And they've put Groves on the pay-per-view to almost justify, haven't they?
I know. I mean, I really don't. Kurt mentioned. Kurt, you said that Groves is actually getting the biggest payday off all the people on that card. He's the one that's getting the biggest payday. Is that right?
Well, that's the rumour. He's supposed to be picking up at least 350 grand.
So that tells you its own story. I mean, I think I said as well, as I think Bellew was paid something like 400,000 for the first fight. I don't know if that's 100% accurate, but that was the rumour going around about the boxing community when I was still training anyway. It was £400,000. So I just wonder how much Bellew's going to be getting for the rematch. So I really don't know.
There'll probably be a pay-per-view cut involved somewhere, though. They'll get a basic flat fee, then obviously, depending on how well the pay-per-view does, they'll scoop some more loot.
Aye.
From what I understand, they're getting very well paid. They're getting paid considerably more than what they got for the first fight.
So that's interesting. What I was going to ask, Rob, I noticed your comments on Mixter there about the Katsiras fight, about the brain scans, etc. But main thing is, mate, do you agree that Katsiras should have been in that ring there on Saturday night?
Yeah, because do you know what? I think the board are strict. Like, that's one thing. There's a lot of things you can say about the board, but they are strict. So, in my opinion, if they let somebody through, then it's okay. I know there's been people in the past that it's been a little bit difficult about, but in recent years they've been pretty good, and I don't think. And I mean, John Murray, he didn't get let through. He was out for a year, wasn't he? And then he came back. Nobody was really complaining about that. I don't think that situation was all that different to Katsidis. It was sad seeing Katsidis in there because I've been a fan of his ever since the Graham Earl fight, and you could see right away he wasn't that same fighter. He just didn't have that ferociousness that he used to bring to the ring. That was just like you couldn't take your eyes off a Katsidis fight, and it was sad to see. I still don't think it was that bad a win for Tommy Coyle. Tommy Coyle's not exactly Floyd Mayweather, is he?
He went OTT with the celebrations, on all honesty, didn't he? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so.
I thought he just buzzed some MCAT at some point there and went fucking doolally, you know?
Yeah, I mean, look, if that's he's obviously put a lot of work into being where he's at, so I don't really hate him for that. I mean, the stuff after 2 world-class lightweights, that was a load of shit.
I know.
So that's pop up on Belly of the Week later on.
Oh, yeah.
But I think, I think Coyle versus Campbell is a good fight, as long as it's not pay-per-view.
Oh, it's going to be pay-per-view.
Yeah.
That's a stack on it, pay-per-view.
The only reason why I don't think that fight will be pay-per-view is because there's other fights that will be going along at the same time that should be bigger fights. And even Sky, I don't think, could get away with more than 4 pay-per-views in a year.
I wish they'd stop using that prize fighter actually as well. I think they need to stop because that's just taking up dates that you could be putting these fighters on rather than he's complaining.
There's only been one prize fight. There's a prize fighter in December. That's been one this season, and at least they've started adding the sort of they do like an area or an English title level fight on the prize fighter, and that's all right now. It's kind of a bit better. It's better than the having 10 a year like they were having for a while.
Rob, just before you came on, Kurt was telling me off air that you wanted to come on here and flame Eddie Hearn. You haven't really done that yet. You want to continue a wee bit more, or you want to make a wee olive branch in the chance that Eddie's listening to kind of make up?
No, fuck that. I think I've been pretty harsh on him. I mean, I don't want to be one of these people that just moans about it. I'm not going to pay for the pay-per-view. I'm not bought in. I'm not really going to defend him anymore. It's tough because once I think you lose the faith of the hardcore fans, I think it's really tough to get it back. You think Warren lost that faith of the hardcore fans a long, long time ago, and despite putting on some really good cards sporadically since, he's never gained that trust back of the hardcore fan. And so Hearn is really going to have to deliver to get that back because people really are turning, and you can tell by those interviews, he is rattled by it.
Oh, aye.
How he likes to try and spin it. We are more important than he likes to let on. They do need us, and just us. I mean, the fact that he got so wound up by people going on other people's Twitters and telling them what idiots they were for wanting to buy the fight. It's just brilliant. Like, keep it up. Like, it's our job to make sure this pay-per-view is not a success, and we can make an impact.
Well, we're actually talking about that there. Fight week, I think everyone needs to make a concerted effort to start just put out their hashtags, whatever it is, boycott the pay-per-view, whatever it's going to be, team stream, by other methods or whatever.
I'm going to be posting every single stream link all week.
Rob, just before I let you go, mate, any other parting shots you want to pass over?
Just that I was at the Golovkin fight 2 weeks ago, and just like one of the best experiences I've ever had at a boxing match. It was the crowd just was so behind him.
That's good to know. Actually, I think he really does need to kind of latch onto a fan base somewhere. Maybe it need to be the Latinos. I think
Robbie said as well. Seeing Mexicans cheer against the Mexican as well was you've done well then, and Golovkin has been built well over there by K2. Yeah, massively. I mean, there was a few when I was kind of walking out, you did hear a few groans from people that I think were maybe sort of casuals that were kind of annoyed that it went so quickly, kind of like the old, in the Tyson days, people would moan about, I've paid $50 for 2 minutes of action kind of thing. So I think he might struggle in that regard. But I mean, I think Los Angeles is a big enough city that he could start selling out bigger venues
in Los Angeles every 6 months. And the best thing about it is that there's no reason to avoid him now. They can't have the old excuse of, don't he doesn't draw any money, he doesn't bring anything to the table, because he does now. He's got HBO's back in, fans come out to see him, and yeah, so I do think those fights should happen next year.
Good stuff. Right, Rob, we'll bounce along just now, mate, but thanks for your points there. And if you do get a chance to speak to Eddie, just apologise to him, and you maybe get to refollow him on. I think he banned you from Twitter, is that right?
Yeah,
it must have been really bad if you got banned, because I've given a bit of abuse on Twitter and I've not been banned yet. So
I think it was because I was pushing streaming. I was telling people, don't pay 15 quid, you can watch it for free. So Team Stream all the way.
Good stuff, mate.
Later on.
Catch you later.
Cheers, Rob.
Cheers, mate.
Kurt, any other callers coming on, mate?
Yeah, getting Paul on.
Coming on just right now, yeah?
Yeah, the Paul Smith fan.
Oh, yeah.
He'll never live that down.
I think he got kind of rattled a wee bit when they made that comment with the responses he got back. He was like, fuck, I just stepped over the line a wee bit. You know, notice I've actually kind of curbed my enthusiasm towards Cotto a wee bit.
Why? Well, when he fights again, you'll be kicking off.
I know, I don't hate on him that much. I've got Paul coming on here. What was he wanting? Paul, you there, mate? Paul? Just take the condom off. Alright, Paul. You there, mate?
She's making a brew.
You hear me?
I can hear you, mate, aye. You sound pissed off. What's wrong?
No, I had fucking... my headphones died on me. Yeah. I think Rob basically stole all my thunder then, to be perfectly honest. He said everything I was going to say. His Eddie Hearn's interview, I think it was the one he did after the whole show, where he basically... that mask he wears slipped, didn't it, to be honest? He wears a mask. He's got a PR mask. His dad's got one. Whenever he's on TV, whether he's with IFL TV or iFilm London, whatever they're called, whenever he's talking to them, he has this, I think it's a character he puts on. He's the Essex wide boy, isn't he? The lad who likes a bit of football, likes a bit of snooker, likes to laugh at people.
Cheeky Nando's.
Yeah, cheeky Nando's, likes some biscuits, stuff like that. It's one of them. He tries to come across like he's your friend, like he's your mate, he's someone to have a laugh with. But the thing is, he'll only be all that if he knows he can get money off you. To be perfectly honest, yeah, mate, you can have a photo with me. Yeah, mate, I'll give you a retweet. I'll be your mate. Oh, but only if you buy me pay-per-view. Only if you tweet support to me shows. And now that more and more people are being vocal about not liking his shows, he's a little bit insecure. Clearly, everyone's insecure to an extent, but he's insecure that people are, for once, not telling him how great it is. And they're being very vocal about it, like we've said, people retweeting stuff and hounding him all day, saying, oh, your shows are shit, your shows are rip-offs. He clearly doesn't like it, and it's really getting on his tits, I can tell. To be honest, good. I'm glad it's getting on his tits, because at the end of the day, he is ripping fans off with this sort of thing. And if you've got no life because you don't like being ripped off, and you're vocal about not being like, you're very vocal about not being charged for money that you don't feel is merited, then fuck it, I haven't got a life either. Because I've got much more of a life than these twats who fucking buy tickets and tweet to him saying VIP section, see you in the bar, hashtag. They've got no fucking life, if you ask me.
Well, I actually took Eddie's advice and I hugged my wife. I took my daughter and my wife out last night to my dad's birthday party. I decided to get a life, but you know, I've got a full-time job. You know, I do this out of love of the sport, etc. Just as a kind of sort of hobby. You know, I've not bought a pay-per-view for fucking years. You know, I streamed the fucking Carol Froch, Michael Kessler fight off a Danish website because my brother-in-law's got an account to it. But I just think, you know, recently, Hearns, as you say, the mask has definitely slipped there. You know, this is a guy who's had basically a privileged life. His dad's a working class guy, coming up from London, etc. But Eddie's kind of lived a kind of sheltered life somewhat. You know, I just find it kind of slightly offensive that, you know, he's just having a go at probably the hardcore fans by saying, listen, we're not fucking buying this pish. Listen, see if this was a business. we were complaining about. We'd be straight on the phone to trading standards about this fucking nonsense. But no, we're not allowed to voice our opinion because we don't matter.
Yeah. To be perfectly honest, he likes to come across like he's a Del boy, doesn't he? And he's not a Del boy, he's a Boise. He wants your money. He wants your money. He doesn't offer you any value for money cards, or at least he hasn't for a long time. Because all his fighters on them just fight mismatches nowadays. Mismatch room's the perfect name for it. In fact, I was in the gym earlier on. It's because he rang me up asking me if I wanted to be Scott Quigg's latest opponent. And I said, yeah, I fancy the money. So, again, it's not on now. Don't buy his cards. If you listen to this, don't buy this for pay-per-view. I can't tell you what to do with your money. If you think it's worth pay-per-view, then no one can stop you from buying it. But if you're a real boxing fan, don't give this idiot your money anymore. Not till he puts on a card that's worth your money, and it's just not worth your money. I don't think he's put a single fight on. I don't think a single pay-per-view they've put on since they brought it back I've come away from it and said, yeah, you know what, that was worth the money. Because Froch Kessler, what was that undercard for that? It was Bellew Chilemba 2, that classic. It was Groves against Gonzalez, that guy who got battered by Rocky Fielding. They were the only two undercard fights I think that were shown on TV, were they? What was the other one? The other one that Froch vs Groves, one. What undercard was on that?
You had McDonald against the Thai fighter Ratchalat. You had Joshua.
Oh, yeah. That guy who saved me kebab earlier on. Yeah, well done.
The Gale against, they call him Gonzalez.
Gonzalez. Yeah, at Wembley. Okay, these are not awful cards, but are these cards worth money? Really? Are these cards...
I genuinely didn't mind paying for Froch Groves 2, even though I didn't pay for it. I watched it in Hong Kong.
Okay. Okay. Froch Groves 2 gets a pass because it was such a massive event.
Harrison was another one, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Did he promote that fight?
He was...
Did you?
Yeah.
He was Harrison's promoter, wasn't he?
Well, yeah. They went through Skype.
What if Hortley lands that left hand? Should have known. And Eddie Hearn said that, what we were letting ourselves in for. He was going to be the promoter.
Saying that, I suppose if anyone's going to buy into fucking Harrison's bullshit, then it's questions need to be asked somewhere along the line. But I was going to say, actually, as I said, I've said in the past, Hearn mentioned to me about this guy that Quigg's fighting next and stuff, and the other guy, Shingo Wake, I says, he came back to me and he said, but he's got 3-4 defeats. I says, but wait a minute, you've just said to me that you're looking to get Kiko Martinez for Quigg for next year, and he's got 5 defeats. So where's the logic in that? I mean, Wake's a decent fighter. I still take Quigg to beat him, mind you, but this guy, he's fighting this Otka guy, he's going to do nothing. Quigg will blast him out there in 3-4 rounds. But, if
Anthony Crawler, his own fighter who he loves so much, he's got 4 losses.
Yeah, exactly.
He's fighting world titles.
I mean, he would be better off surely putting in some of these stable guys now. I mean, I don't know if he wants to do it, but he's been licking his lips at the chance of getting Ricky Burns fucked over against some of these guys at domestic level. Why you don't make those domestic fights? I mean, get them on Sky. Crawler against Burns, for instance. A decent enough fight. But I tell you, if the budget's a problem here, right, and he's got certain dates, why make these mismatches? Why not just stick within the budget? Don't stack the card and just have some good fights. Quigg against Frampton if you can make it possible. I don't know. I mean, obviously I'm not into the business side of things that much, but I just think you've got to look at it. If you've got a set budget, don't stack the cards with complete shit. Get a couple of good fights on there and pay them the money. Simple as.
See if you're getting like Quigg against Frampton with Burns, Kroll on the undercard, maybe Kevin Mitchell on there against somebody decent. And I actually wouldn't mind paying pay-per-view for something like that. To be honest.
The thing is, he doesn't need Sky dates for the lesser fighters in his team, for the ones who just need stay busy fights. He's got his fucking fight pass for that now. He ordered that because he said specifically he's going to put guys on there who need tune-up fights or his little prospects. He's going to put that on his fight pass. He doesn't need Sky's approval to put fights on there. He just needs to book a fucking hall. And it's a joke that he's moaning that he hasn't got enough dates after he's set that up. He's just taking the piss.
Well, the thing is, no one wants to see stay busy or keep busy fights on a pay-per-view, and that's what George Groves, James McDonough, Quigg, that's what they're all. That's what they're all on. You know what I'm saying? And the thing with the fight pass, that was invented really just for people to get their T-shirt and retweet to Eddie, isn't it? So I mean, that's
was
doing
made
its job.
For fucking touts to get their tickets, aren't they?
It's just a watered down version of Box Nation, basically, just with matchroom fighters on it. That's all it is.
I mean, can they not have these guys fight? I mean, surely, like, okay, if you've got Sky, for instance, I mean, see if this Fight Pass, Alex, that we've spoken about in the past, why does Herno set up some sort of channel like Warren's done? Maybe do it online and maybe showcase his fighters there, or why not go to I don't know, Channel 5? Maybe get a deal with them so that you can get these guys built up a profile, move them back to Sky.
That's what Red Button on Sky would be ideal.
Yeah, Red Button on Sky, for instance. Yeah.
They've taken away Red Button. They haven't used Red Button in ages. And I was saying that's what Fight Pass is. All they need is a small hall, and they can get their prospects and the guys that need tune-ups on those fights. You can show that whenever he wants. You can have it in the middle of the week if he wants on Fight Pass. But no, instead he's getting Goodwin or fucking Coldwell to do their shows, which were free before, and now we're paying £30 a year for it up front to see their shows that were previously free. It's just complete nonsense. And then he's still moaning that, he hasn't got the dates to make these fights, he's got to put these fighters on here because he needs a tune-up, or we've got to try and stack these cuts. It's just complete fucking bullshit.
Sorry, guys. Paul, anything else you want to add about the show? Rand just says boycott it. Not about the show, but there's another point I want to bring up, because over the last few weeks he's really annoyed me doing the Coogan Cassius, to be honest. Didn't he agree to come on the show and he's chickened out or something? He said he would come on, but he hasn't responded to some other guys asking him again today. To be honest, if I do get him on, I actually want to have a kind of special show, because I want guys like yourself to send in questions, or maybe even come on and speak to him, put questions to him, whatever, because I think, that show, that interview itself would generate a lot of interest, I think, and people will basically have a lot of questions to ask the guy.
I just think all the listeners should tweet Coogan and demand that he comes on and answers questions, and don't fear us like Donny Stevenson fears the Crusher. Come on and face his destiny with us.
Alex is calling him Coogan Quackius.
Well, we give him a fair shake. I mean, we've got a bit of a reputation as a bit moaners and having a go at Hearn all the time. But, if we get someone on, we'll give him a fair shake. Anyone who wants to come on and talk about something that may be against the general trend of what we talk about, we give them their say. And Coogan would get the same treatment. We'd hash it out.
We tolerate Donny, don't we? So everybody's going to get a fair shake, haven't they?
And to be fair to Coogan, he did say that someone asked him on Twitter, and he did say he felt the card needed another Cleverly Barry type fight, like a 50-50 type. So,
yeah, the point I wanted to make about him was, I've been reading him basically saying, why are people giving me stick over the cards? Why are people acting like pay-per-view is, you've got to pay for the pay-per-view? Why are people getting annoyed at me because of why they're annoyed at him? Now, he tells us every 5 seconds that he's not biased. He hasn't got an agenda. He treats Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn the same. But when you look at his videos, it doesn't come across like that. To be perfectly honest, when he's having these interviews with Eddie Hearn, just like the one the other day, where he's standing there and he's having a laugh with him and having a banter like two mates in the pub, it does come across, in my opinion, because I'm an amateur journalist, it comes across, in my opinion, as very, very unprofessional. Because at the end of the day, he's meant to be there doing a job. He's meant to be there representing fans when he's asking these questions. And when he's like, he's agreeing with Eddie Hearn, when Eddie asks him, do you not get all these people moaning at you? He's like, yeah, it's annoying, Eddie, isn't it? Really annoying. It's perfectly honest. You wouldn't do that with Frank Warren.
I just think, until we see a video with Coogan in a car with Frank in the background dancing, I believe there's a bias as well.
Yeah, now I understand he's Eddie Hearn's mate and off camera, and that's fine. He can be friends with who he wants to be with. But when he's interviewing Eddie Hearn on camera, and when he's meant to be asking him serious questions, and he's meant to be representing the fans, because he's meant to be asking him questions that the fans want answering, don't do it in a way where you're kind of agreeing with Eddie Hearn and everything he's saying. Let the fans make up their own minds. It's the narrative, that's the word I'm looking for, the narrative of his videos, or the recent ones anyway, that I don't like.
Do you not think maybe, so I was going to say, do you think Coogan's way of doing it is just, that kind of like draws you in more,
I've got nothing against that, but what I mean is, I don't like the fact that he's clearly agreeing with everything Hearn's saying, and that rubs off on a lot of casual people when they're watching these interviews, when they're like, I agree with everything Eddie's saying as well, because Coogan, the interviewer, is agreeing with it. He must be talking a lot of sense. I don't like that personally. I'm an amateur journalist, and when you interview somebody, in my opinion, it's all right to get along with them and to have a bit of a banter with them. But at the end of the day, you are there. You're meant to be having a serious conversation for the most part. And I'm not interested in listening to him talk about, all these haters on Twitter give me a load of abuse. Yeah, isn't it horrible? I'm not interested in that. Ask him serious questions on behalf of the fans. Let the fans make up their own minds to what he's saying, instead of basically subtly, I can't say the word, instead of agreeing with him and basically helping him get his message across in the way he wants to get it across.
No problem, mate. Thanks a lot for that.
Okay,
listen, mate. I heard you got your own podcast on the show, but on the go. Sorry, I like the idea of this casual off the week comment. I like that.
Oh yeah, feel free, lads. Feel free.
So just remember, retweet and tweet all the way, guys.
We've got some We've really got some corkers on that. I'm sure you've.
We've seen them all over the place. Anyway, mate, cheers for that.
Okay, lads. Thanks a lot.
All the best. Cheers.
That's one.
Any more callers coming on, Kurt?
I don't think anyone is coming on at the moment. They're ducking.
No problem.
Where's Tony at?
Tony, come on, Tony.
Big Dave.
Dave. Where's that next Dave?
Big Dave was coming on, but apparently he's he's put in the wrong password and Skype had blocked him. So
Jesus Christ! Only he could do that.
He's running his Xanax.
So I think we can all we know that's true with Dave.
He's ducking it. Right, Twitter questions. I got this one in from Nomad from our forum. Actually, it's actually quite a lengthy question, but he actually makes some good points here. I'll just read it out. He wanted to ask how the British Border Control can go out their way to fine the likes of Tyson Fury for swearing, but not bat an eyelid when Eddie Hearn brings over brain-damaged fighters like James Toney and Katsiras for his boxing events. It is known that Michael Katsiras has had some kind of scan that revealed some scar on his brain bleeds, etc. While the result of his last fight and the way he went down is quite telling in itself. Then you have Jermaine Taylor, who only needed to listen. You only need to listen to him speak to know he is not fit for the sport no more. Even though he did relatively well on Prize Fighter, I still like to ask why is it that they can seemingly look the other way when they make these fights. I mean, we got a lot of premature stoppages around here. I've mostly seen that as a legacy of the 90s, which happened with the likes of Watson and McClellan. They want to avoid another tragedy, and sometimes it could be plain corruption to make a fighter look good or even save one from losing. However, they still got an alibi, yet they would let them make a matchup between a healthy young fighter against an unfit older fighter who is potentially suffering from some sort of brain damage. No premature stoppage could have saved Katsiras if the guy was in there long enough to take the one punch that could potentially end him for good. I've kind of disagree with most of that. Sorry, I couldn't read it out more kind of clearly there because it's got some words missing, etc. So I've got to kind of stop and just make sure. But he's making a good point there. Actually, I mean, you put a short fighter like Katsiras in against a healthy young fighter, you're running a risk there. We've discussed it just before we got into this question that they're running a big risk sometimes with some of these fighters getting potentially damaged.
I think he made a good point there, Andy, when he said about the board and the referees are sort of afraid on British soil of stopping. They're going to stop the fights a bit quicker because I think you mentioned Watson and all those type of incidents there. I actually noticed something like that last night when Ian John Lewis was refereeing that Chakiev-Fragamini fight that we were talking about earlier. I thought Lewis looked a lot more at ease with himself. He wasn't quick to jump in. He gave Fragamini the count. On away soil, and I've noticed that with a few of the British referees. Maybe there is that sort of little bit of a stigma attached, and they are, they're going to jump in a little bit quicker because I think away from home they are less inclined to jump in as quickly.
Yeah, like a time when he allowed Klitschko to just smash
Shannon Briggs, exactly.
Exactly. I think it's from Steve's point there. I think it's obvious they feel more pressure on British soil, to stop the fights early because he stopped Enzo Macronelli, didn't he, when he wasn't even hurt against Oliver McKenzie? Was it the first fight about Oliver McKenzie?
Yeah.
And yet he let Shannon Briggs, be put in hospital for a week, and but that fight should have been stopped. And so I just think the pressure on British soil is too much, and they have to step in. I mean, we do see quite a lot of early stoppages, to be honest.
Next question comes from Sean Bruckshaw. I'll go to Alex. With signs of future bad health that Sprott is showing, like slurred speech, is it right for him to face AJ?
We talked about this before, haven't we? I mean, Sprott, he got knocked out in the first round against his last opponent a couple of months ago. He was like a 42-year-old New Zealand's heavyweight who's never fought anyone good, and just complete toss. And that was in like a prize fighter style fight. He's had the last 6 fights that he's been in have all been like prize fighter style, and here he is up against, the fucking unit, big bad boy Anthony Joshua, and he shouldn't be fighting him, let alone he shouldn't be fighting anyone, let alone Joshua. There's nothing to be said about the fight. It's a complete joke, especially on pay-per-view.
Tommy, next question goes to you, mate. This is for Paul McAllister, who was just on the call there. Would Troy have fallen to the Greeks if they had Anthony Joshua on board?
Fucking hell, man. I didn't care to answer that.
Jack Rathbone's asking then, Tommy, Sean Porter versus Golovkin, is that an interesting fight? Who wins? Golovkin forced on the back foot more?
Sean Porter?
Aye.
Oh my god, next question.
Go back to the Troy question.
Right, okay, this is a good one. Michael Gerritty's asking, what's worse, the Matchroom pay-per-view card or Kelly Maloney getting makeup tattooed on her face?
I'm going to have to go with the Matchroom pay-per-view card on that one. Yeah.
Kelly isn't asking us to pay for it, is she?
You shag her?
Shagged worse.
Rocco sent in a kind of lengthy question. Maybe we'll leave that for a topic question, but we'll maybe ask it anyway. Says, who's your number one fighter at middleweight? Match him up, Super 6 style if you want. Murray, Macklin, Lee, Billy Joe Saunders, Eubank Jr., etc. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 middleweights at British level, but looks of it there, so we need one more fighter. Andy Lee.
Are we talking like a British?
I think looks like it, British Super
John
6
Ryder.
John Ryder, aye. Yeah. So Murray, Macklin, Lee, Saunders, Eubank Jr., and we'll go for John Ryder.
For me, I'd still say Marty Murray right now.
Aye, number one. Alex?
I'll go for Martin Murray as well. Maybe Andy Lee, see how he gets on against Korobov.
Steve?
Andy Lee, but I'm biased.
Aye, I knew that. Tommy?
Billy Joe.
I'm going to go for Eubank Jr. because I'm buying into hype.
Fuck's sake.
Nah, I'll nominate myself for Bell You the Week Award next week. Nah,
I'll tell you something, by the way. See if this kid is as tough as his old man, and he has got the Eubank genes in him, obviously, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with, but we'll just need to see what he's made of.
I mean, I'm a Saunders fan. I've just not seen nothing in Junior. I just didn't see nothing in him yet. Obviously, he's never fought anyone. Mm-hmm. So it could be interesting if the fight goes late though. Saunders' gas tank might start to kind of wilt a little bit. That's
especially if Saunders comes out like a maniac for the first 5 or 6 rounds. If the Eubank hype and all the mind games have got to Saunders, which they might have done, I can see him coming out like an absolute nutcase for the first few rounds, trying to knock him out and walking onto things.
You got to remember as well, I mean, Saunders fought John Ryder, who was a prospect, wasn't he, as well? And that was a competitive fight, He wasn't like, he didn't look levels above him, and obviously we're yet to see Eubank step up, but they've took the fight, they're obviously confident. Senior, he's not a stupid man, and he's obviously got all the confidence that his son can pull it off. I still think Saunders myself, but I don't think it would be a big shock if Eubank pulled it off, to be honest. Rob's
asking in the chat there, we'll just ask this quick question. Who would win between Golovkin and Eubank Sr.?
They'd go the distance.
Golovkin on points.
Mm. He had one of the all-time great chins, didn't he? I mean, he might get dropped a few times, but after you get fucking up.
Just a bit too lazy, I think, and the work rate would just get Golovkin the win.
Aye.
Chris could punch too, though, couldn't he?
Golovkin's got a chin of his own, though, hasn't he?
Yeah, but saying as well, I mean, I take it, you're obviously talking about a Eubank here, post Watson too. I think because he was never the same puncher again after that, was he? I mean, I think I remember counting it. I think after the second Watson fight, I believe he had, you could count in one hand how many knockouts he had after that, or stoppage victories after that. I think, which was quite telling on its own. But next question goes to Steve. This is from Ben. Simply greedy and lazy promoters expecting a cash cow, or are the shows worth the cost to us punters? Like he's talking about this upcoming card.
I think I made my feelings known on it earlier. I think that they're just trying to maybe sort of milk the cash cow while it's there. I mean, you know, regarding some of the shows, like say, I don't know, the Matchroom shows, for example, they've sort of got the darts crowd on board. You know, the football fans in Leeds and Hull and that are sort of tagging along, and I think they're just, you know, riding the crest of a wave while it's there, I suppose. I mean, the links these days are quite tenuous, although, I mean, with the Matchroom connection with Sky, you don't think that they're going to be booted anytime soon, you know, with them having the snooker and the darts and all that. But I mean, the likes of Warren did it with Setanta, didn't he? And then ITV, you know, sort of just run it dry until you get booted off and move on to something else. So,
I don't know what Jack Halbert's asking me this one here. Which fights or opponents would have made Bellew versus... that's it. Which fight... Well, basically, what fights or opponents would have made that card more pay-per-view worthy? Kurt?
Quigg versus Martinez or Rebecca or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think Rebecca would have been a better fight than the other guys previously mentioned, in my opinion. For Quigg, you know, you can say what you want about him, but he would have easily been his biggest step up.
Someone better for McDonald, possibly, or maybe not Canada, but yeah, at least someone in the top 10.
Personally, I don't think it would be pay-per-view. I think you need a quality main event. You know, nothing against the fight. It's a good grudge fight between two guys, you know, domestic guys. But you know, look at it compared to like a Hatton Zoo, a Hatton Mayweather, a Hatton Pacquiao, a Klitschko Hay. You know, you're talking about a massive main event, and for me, that's what you need in a fight of this pay-per-view thing.
Well, Kell Brook would have helped as well. He didn't get stabbed.
That's true. I just quickly, can I ask Rob and Paul, go and stop chatting in the Skype, guys, because it's kind of off-putting. I'm trying to keep my train of thought at the same time. Sorry about that. Jack Halbert's asking, I'll go to all these of this one. This is actually quite good. Is Luke Campbell against Tommy Coyle the most one-sided stadium fight ever?
I think Campbell would beat one about 3 or 4 rounds.
Oh, aye.
Oh, Campbell chins him, easy.
Yeah, I can't. That's comfortable for Campbell, isn't he? His level's above that. Let's be honest.
What else we got? Rob, I'm going to boot your balls, mate.
Rob is currently chatting one word at a time in the Skype channel.
Yeah. This is what Rob was doing to Eddie to get banned.
Yeah.
This is what he was doing.
No, Andy's going to ban him. Andy, you're going to ban the troll now, are you?
No. I've got a kind of slightly more tolerance level to trolls, but Dean Jackson's asking, do we all need to get lives?
Oh yeah, Eddie said so.
Saint Eddie. Chris Williamson, Tommy, I'll go to you, mate, because you're a historian buff. Which fight or fighter made the panel into fans? For me, Eubank versus Ben, then Holyfield versus Cooper. Latter shown on Sky Movies, precursor to pay-per-view. So who got you into the mix, mate? Aye, into boxing.
I can remember watching Ben Eubank 2 and all, man. I can remember Tyson and that as well, and I actually remember when Tyson lost the title. We just got Sky in that at the time, and Buster Douglas beat him. I remember getting woke up for it, like a couple of Tyson fights, and my dad's really been into boxing for years as well, and you know he's got me. I've been watching it since I've been a kid, so yeah, it's probably been the Tyson and the Ben Eubank eras.
Steve, how about you, mate? Steve, we lost him.
Oh, hello.
Right, you there?
Yeah, sorry.
Who's same question to you?
Aye, no, I was going to say, I was a bit of a latecomer, to be honest with you. I was always a bit of a casual fan, knew what was going on, but it was around 2000, Calzaghe, Woodall, David Tua, Lennox Lewis. Those are the ones.
Casual.
Those are the early ones, and been head first ever since. So yeah, but relative latecomer.
Kurt.
I mean, it's
Ricky Hatton.
probably cleverly Bao Yu won. No, it was probably. I mean, the first fight I remember really having an interest in was probably Luis Bruno. I mean, I didn't have Sky out to listen on the radio. That was the sad part, but that was the fight that really, I can remember having an interest in and people talking about it. And I was a bit. Can't remember anything before then, to be honest, in terms of boxing.
You wanted Frank Bruno to win that fight. You've always hated Lennox Lewis, Carter.
Yeah,
never liked Lennox.
My dad was a big true Brit Bruno fan, so I kind of went with Bruno.
Yeah.
Alex.
Did boxing exist before Eddie Hearn came along? I mean, I'm a bit younger than most of you guys, so it was a bit late. I didn't see a lot of the good era with Ben and Eubank and Prime Tyson and all that, but I do remember seeing when I was about 9 or 10 years old, I guess, or maybe 11, seeing Lewis versus Tyson. That was probably the first fight I ever saw. Then I sort of went along a bit as being a casual fan, watching some Ricky Hatton as I was getting a bit older, and then just seeing some of Hatton's fights got me into it a bit more. Hatton Mayweather was really the sort of big one. It got me really into it, and then I was just going on from there, I suppose.
Me, I think it was Frank Bruno. I remember watching the fight. Now, I don't know if it was Tim Witherspoon, but I definitely remember the Bruno, the first Tyson fight, because we had to wait till the Sunday morning to watch the fight on replay on ITV, etc. I remember some of Ben's main early fights as well. But I think, is like most of these, what really kind of kicked my interest into it was obviously the Ben Eubank Collins Watson era.
I mean, without looking, wasn't Lewis and Bruno and Ben Eubank too? Wasn't they like
same time?
Like week later or 2 weeks later? They were both in stadiums, weren't they?
95. The year that Bruno beat McCall was the same year that Ben fought McClellan, and I think right now, let me get this right. I think the Bruno fight was on Sky. I think the McClellan fight was on ITV.
It was on ITV, yeah.
Aye.
And I think you had Lewis Bruno, and then you had Eubank Ben too. I think a couple of weeks later, and they're both in. Obviously, Lewis was in Cardiff, and their fight was in the stadium as well. So I mean, big time for British boxing that was.
Just when you talk about stadium fights, right, and pay-per-view, etc. On that card, you had Bruno fight McCall, right? Virgil Hill against Derek Thadze. Now that was a top light heavyweight at the time.
That was a good fight, yeah.
Virgil Hill was, I don't know if he was still the legit lineal champion at that time. Steve Foster against Bahiri Hamete. Now Foster was a crowd pleaser. Chris Pyatt, was he not a world champion as well? Well, I know Glenn Catley was. He was a world champion.
He won a WBC title, Catley.
Catley was, yeah.
And you Nigel Benn versus Daniel Perez, which was a seven round knockout. Now that's a no bad card for a pay-per-view. Better than this dog shit that we're getting served up in a couple of weeks' time, anyway.
You look back to I remember the Lewis Tyson card getting a lot of heat back in the day. And you look back to that card, you had Manny Pacquiao in there, didn't you?
Was that the one he beat? Fucking.
It was the one after Ladwaba.
Right.
Wasn't it?
Was it that one? Let me have a look here. That was, you see the Tyson one, eh?
Tyson Lewis.
Manny
Yeah.
Pacquiao against Jorge Julio, Joe Casamayor against Juan Arizas, David Starry, remember him?
Aye.
Oh my god, he was shit.
Oh, I like Starry back in the day, man.
He fucking ran like fuck. He ran like a thief against Kawasaki.
that was
didn't he?
Aye, it was his last fight against
I'll
Hopkins.
tell you, somebody with that was a close fight with Shinnock. I had that fight a draw, I think. He beat Clinton Woods. He was a decent fighter.
Who else did he beat?
Tyson's had some pish under pay-per-views, though, hasn't he? Do you remember Tyson against Cliff Etienne? That was the worst I ever bought.
Was that his first fight back from prison?
He helped him up after knocking him out, didn't he?
Aye.
He was going schizo, was he? When the referee stretched up the fight, he just kept punching under the nose.
That was Savarese, that was it. That was in Glasgow.
Luis Savarese, aye. The Etienne one was when he broke his back afterwards, wasn't it? The famous,
I
broke my back.
Broke my back, yeah. Was the McBride fight on pay-per-view as well?
That was I.
Was it?
I think it was. Danny Williams was on Bravo for some reason. Remember the Bravo channel? It was on Sky. That's what Danny Williams was on.
Frank Maloney ran a few pay-per-views, didn't he, back in the early Satanta? I mean, the very early, before it became mainstream. He had Kevin Bennett against Graham Earl on a friggin' £10 pay-per-view.
Do you remember some of those 90s ones like with Hamed on and Robin Reed, and I think Winky Wright was on a couple, wasn't he, as well?
Winky Wright came here for Ainsley Bingham and he fought for
yeah.
as well, didn't he?
Yeah, and was it? And then you had like Eubank and Calzaghe and Hamed was on that, and Ryan Rhodes and guys like that. I mean, you had some good cards.
We used to go all the pay-per-views. They used to be brilliant back in the day. I didn't mind paying. I never minded paying for someone like Nazim Hamed or Tyson or that. You're always guaranteed to get a violent knockout in that.
Yeah, and you're talking about
entertainers.
And you're talking about an elite guy as well. That's the
exactly.
thing. An elite guy, he's going to be entertaining in the ring as well. When you talk about lower level fighters, I think that's the problem.
It seems new that a rivalry. A domestic rivalry is enough to bill it as a pay-per-view,
Exactly.
And that's just no on.
Aye, so as I said, Luke Campbell, Tommy Quill will end up on pay-per-view. I think that's the last question, guys, so we'll come up to the Bill of the Week segment. What we're running at just now, 1 hour and a half. It's been quite busy this week, actually, so Kurt's going to get the new and approved Bill of the Week intro running just now. It's really good, guys. I think you added that a bit back in, Kurt, didn't you?
Yeah, just keep talking a minute, I wasn't ready.
I'm just actually looking at that Tyson Lewis pay-per-view card just now. Manny Pacquiao, Casamayor, obviously David Starry, had Malik Scott on it, Jeff Lacey, Nadal Hussein, K9 Bundrage,
Nadal Hussein, is he the Australian guy?
I think it was him fought Scott Harrison, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Tough guy, tough guy, yeah.
We should do one where there's the worst pay-per-view cards put on.
Oh, it's going to be the undisputed king. That's going to be Hay Harrison, hasn't it? That'll never be topped.
That was like that. They didn't even the one fight on it was Groves against Kenny Anderson, wasn't it? But they didn't show it live. They showed it taped, didn't they? And then you had like 2.5 hours of Johnny Nelson and Barry McGuigan on the touch screen telling us how Harrison can win, how Hay can win, the tactics. It was a wonderful tactics show.
They never flew a punch, yeah.
Ready, Kurt?
Yeah, I'll get it sorted now.
Looking forward to this all week.
It's going to happen, mate. We're going to do it. And when we do it, it's going to be vicious, mate. I ain't a man dregsing with the weights. I ain't a man taking the last ounces of my soul on the scales. I've done that before. I ain't doing it no more. You can say what you want. Oh, Bellew's not in shape. Bellew looks fleshy at the weight. Bellew's just iced a man who's never been done before. Bellew just feels in absolutely fantastic shape. Bellew doesn't lose 2.5 stone no more each time for a camp. Bellew goes to the gym now 15 stone and just cuts £10 nice and easy. I fought Nathan Cleverly in my 16th fight, 15 fight novice. I had 4, the best person I fought was Oval Mackenzie at British title level. I am now, is that 25, is that 26 fight? I've fought some of the best, I've fought the best fighter in the world in my weight class, one of the biggest pound for pound punchers in the world. I've beat guys like Isaac Chilemba, world ranked guys. Let's see who beats Isaac Chilemba. I've beat renowned punchers, Ederson Miranda. I'm not saying he was the best Ederson Miranda, I'm just saying I've beat these guys. Who's he beat? Okay, everyone's saying, well, Tony, he did beat you. He beat a guy who basically got a fight because he opened his mouth at a press conference and he sells a shitload of tickets to the Echo Arena. That's why I got that fight. Everybody thought he was going to smash me. Everyone involved with that fight thought he was going to smash me. But when he went to within an inch of losing, and it's a decision that could have went either way, he doesn't want to come near me after it. That's why he couldn't answer the question then when I said it in front of him. Just answer me this: why wouldn't you take the rematch immediately? Do you know what he said? I think he was saying what that Walsh train station was. That long word. I couldn't understand what he was saying. I just answered the simple question: why wouldn't you fight me the minute after the rematch happened? He wouldn't fight me because he believed he was going to knock me out, and he just believed he was going to beat me up. And that's all I've got to say about that. Let's do it right now. We can do it right now, you fucking rat.
No, it doesn't, mate. just see in that intro, actually, see about the first fight. Now, he claimed, for instance, it was a close fight, etc., which it was, but he knew after that final bell rang, he knew he never done enough to win that fight, and that was in his hometown. Mm-hmm. You know,
that's the thing that annoys me. He keeps making excuses, but when he got the fight, he told everyone who'd listen. He was, cleverly could not take his power. One punch would all it would take, and he'd go down. Then after the fight, he sat on the ringside. He said, cleverly, fair play to him. He deserved the decision he fought. Then he suddenly he changes it and says, oh, I was a novice. I wasn't ready. Or he makes all the excuses. The fact is, if Cleverly's as shit as you say, you shouldn't have had no trouble with him. Kovalev showed what you do to someone like Cleverly if you're a puncher. Bellew couldn't do it. And this is why this fight is, again, he's looked upon close, and no one would be shocked if Cleverly won it again.
Right, guys, I've got quite a few nominations this week, and I'll go round you all, see if you've got anything coming up, but this one came in from Marcus Bellinger on Twitter, actually. He's nominated that singer, or the people that were singing the national anthems on the Channel 5 card.
Oh, God, they were terrible.
They were fucking awful. I mean, I've heard better noises coming out the fucking bog than those fuckers that were singing.
Noises on this podcast.
That was the worst rendition of the anthem I'd ever heard.
Oh, South Africa went on for about 10 minutes or something, is that right?
Yeah, for Hecky Butler, it's just awful.
Poor. Anyways, Steve, you like this one. Michael Buffer gets another nomination this week. Introducing Povetkin in the Takam fight, he says, these are the two of the best heavyweights in the world.
Yeah.
Maybe one of them is, but Takam certainly isn't fucking one of the best that I've seen in recent years.
Doesn't surprise me.
Now, Shep on Twitter sent me one about Paul Smith. Now, did anybody catch his comments about Max Kellerman? Kellerman. So.
Yeah, I saw what he was saying.
He says, just watching the fights back from last night, can't abide Max Kellerman. Arrogant, patronising, odious man. No respect for fighters.
Self-awareness.
But he's willing to work with Nick Holland.
Kellerman's getting better. I think he's improved a lot over the years. I didn't like him at first, but Kellerman's actually quite good.
He still sucks off Roy Jones' big style though.
And Andre Ward.
And anybody from the New York area, but apart from that, he's alright.
he loves Andre Ward as well, doesn't he?
The problem with him always was he used to pass off his opinion as fact, didn't he? He even used to shout fact at the end of everything he said, but they seem to have stopped that now.
He's growing up a bit, I mean.
Now, I'm going to put forward also these mongoloid fans that are asking for retweets of Eddie Hearn and stuff like that. We need to think of a name or a group for these people so we can actually nominate them up. Anybody got any jazzy names for them?
Bum sniffers, arse lickers.
Cock smokers.
Fucking helter skelter, they're like a cult, aren't they?
The cult award, we'll call it the cults.
Bunch of cults,
you know.
You've got to get something like the One Direction or something.
What about Forrest Gumps?
What about what do they call it? Eddie Sperm Brigade.
Sperm Brigade. Eddie Sperm Brigade. Aye.
Eddie Sperm Brigade. Should we leave them out? I think we will. We'll need to think about a proper name for them. I think casual cults. I like that one, Steve. We'll call them the casual cults. So they get a nomination for that, for begging for retweets and a follow, and shook a fart out my farter because I bought your tickets for your pay-per-view, etc., etc. Number 5 goes to Carol Froch. Carol Froch says more than 30,000 fans would follow him to Vegas, and it would be a national event.
I can't even fit. You can't even fit a few fans in tune. George Groves. That's George Groves at that second fight, by the way.
Pay-per-view.
Yeah. 30,000 fans. That's Ricky Hatton material, isn't it? That's just going to happen. Carol Froch is the winner of that.
This one came in from Donny. He's been reading an article on Bad Left Hook. He's putting up Scott Christ. He obviously hasn't proofread his article, but I've just took a wee extract out of it. It says here, he's talking about the Povetkin fight. It wasn't long into the 10th round that he landed a beautiful couple of shits that put Takam flat out on his back, with referee Kenny Baelish jumping in to stop the fight.
It must have been a mean batch.
Eddie Hearn again, he gets a nomination again this week, calling Coyle and Campbell 2 world-class lightweights.
Fuck's sake.
Now, Campbell's only had, 9 fights?
Too early to tell. Campbell potentially is, but Tommy Coyle's never going to be world class.
If you can stop Derry Matthews, you're not going to be classed as world
Banged
class.
out by Derry Matthews, nearly stopped by fucking Brisbane.
Brazil.
And finally, the one I've got is Rodney Berman, who is the president of Golden Gloves Promotion
It's a
Company.
good one.
For Martin Murray, he said that Martin Murray is the Mayweather of the middleweights.
The fucking Jeff Mayweather.
Nice guy, Jeff.
So, you get a picture with him,
He's a good lad.
So that's all I've got this week, guys. Alex, have you got any nominations?
I did have one. Give me a sec. I'll try and think it up again.
The Hernoroids. I like that one, Kurt. I like that. That's good.
I've got a few for the Bow the other week. Stuart, for the Hall and Caballero fight, when they were introducing Stuart Hall, he had a German flag next to his name, so they thought Stuart Hall was German.
Oh yeah.
Even though they just sang the national anthem.
They had that all the way through the fight next to his name, didn't they? And they had a Russian flag up for the next fight.
The Germans claim anybody, you know.
Then you got Johnny Nelson on. This was sent to me on Twitter by Graham. On Golovkin potentially fighting Ward, Kessler, or Chavez Jr. And Johnny Nelson said, "Imagine it, all these guys that Froch's got us familiar with, forgetting that Kessler, fought Calzaghe in front of 50,000 people, prior to his fights with Froch."
Fucking Johnny Nelson. See what he said after that Katsidas fight on Saturday? He went, "Wow, just wow." I'm like, you taking the piss? You try to extract the urine out of me here by saying that was an impressive performance?
And I think, Alex will have to, talk more about this one, but the Eurosport card on Friday, Richie Woodall believing that, they actually got the names mixed up and thought they were watching a different fight. And this went on for almost 4 rounds, and they thought Chris Ware was a Polish guy, and they thought Morgan Jones, who was making his debut, was the hot prospect Chris Jenkins, and this went on for almost 4 rounds, and then about a minute to go of the last round, someone must have just went in their ear and said, you're fucking this up, and then they quickly changed it, and as soon as the show ended and the result was read, they quickly just said, good night, see ya, and it was gone, and they never explained it at all. I just thought, if that was hauling or what, they'd be gone.
The thing that makes that better
Richie
Morgan
Woodall.
Jones.
He's actually quite good, Richie Woodall.
Is it Steve Holdsworth he was with?
I think so. I don't know the other guy's name.
Steve Holdsworth?
No, it was it Kapow, his name is?
Oh, is it?
Tim Kapow.
There are amateurish on Eurosport. I never forget Steve Holdsworth and Glenn Catley were doing it the once, and Holdsworth, they're obviously sitting in a studio in London or something, but Holdsworth was trying to give the impression that they were over in Denmark at the fight. Glenn Catley says, I'd always love to go to Denmark, I've never actually been. And Steve Holdsworth goes, apart from now, Glenn. He goes, oh yeah, apart from now.
Well, you're going to get the pleasure of Eurosport again on Friday. I think Karol Murat's fighting on it. I think Alexiev's actually the promoter for that fight, cruiserweight fighter. So
you'd expect Richie Woodall to know it because Chris Jenkins is a good prospect. But what makes it worse is that they mistaked Morgan Jones for Chris Jenkins. Morgan Jones, he's got let's say a dark skin complexion. He's mixed race, shall we say. Chris Jenkins could be fucking albino.
Has anybody seen what's trending on Twitter?
No.
Stream team. Rob must have been busy. Fucking is.
Rob's seriously battering away on the fucking Twitter. Let me have a look here.
That's the thing, though. Richie Woodall, he's known, he knows his stuff. So to him to make that mistake, he must be, really embarrassed about it.
Tommy, what area is that in, mate? I'm on the Glasgow train just now.
Just the United Kingdom trains, mate.
Right, okay, I'll have a look. United Kingdom. There it is, there, I stream team. Fucking hell.
Let's stop tweeting it to Eddie.
I'm actually quite worried about doing that because he might start taking legal action now to have all these fucking streams shut down just before the pay-per-view.
I'll probably do it long course. He'll buy it.
Fucking poor bastard. You need to educate him. No, that's not Kugan Cassius, is it? There's no way he's fucking trying to get on that fucking show.
Get him on.
Well, he's calling me, so let's see who this guy is. Let's see who this mystery guy is.
Bring him on.
It'll be fucking in now, and we won't know what to say.
We need a fucking voice fucking recogniser actually to make sure it's him.
Be Patton.
Well, it's probably Big Dave. He's in disguise.
It's just going to be Eddie Hearn playing a trick.
Here we go.
Tommy, you need to ask him some questions, mate, because I think we've met him before up in Glasgow, so
Nah.
we'll need to maybe catch him out somehow. Go on, Cougs. See where you are. See if it's you or not.
Gone.
The suspense is killing us here.
I'm getting a bit tense now.
I'm starting to get draw wood actually at the prospect of this guy ducking us and maybe getting a nomination for the Bellew of the Week award.
Yeah, if he's listening, he's got to join the call. I've added him to it, but he's got to join it instead of trying to call me.
Somebody taking the piss, man.
Rob seems to think it's someone else anyway, under a different name.
Let it go.
Oh, Coogie Bear, where are you?
Rocco's on, let's get Tony on. Tony, come on, call us in.
We need to
I've met Cougar and told him he was boxing's version of Bend Over.
Anyway, we need to give us a award to someone this week. We've got quite a high lineup. Steve, you got any nominations?
No, I'm going to go with the national anthem singers.
I've got one more.
Who you got?
I've got one more nomination. I don't know if it's really suitable, but that total knobheads Croatian amateur who chinned that ref. European Games or whatever it was.
You can present him with the award if he wins them.
You can
present him with the award if he wins them.
Was that him? It was that Coogan Cassie's account came online there actually. He's obviously got Mixler on the background.
Yeah, he's just got to mute it, but I agree with everything that he said then.
You maybe need to re-add him to the call then, but tell him to fucking mute Mixler, as he comes on. I was going to say, that's about the only award that Croatian will ever win in sport, actually, if he wins this award this week.
I mean, I don't think he deserves the notoriety or the honour of winning Bellew of the Week, because he's just an absolute prick who should be, off to prison, to be honest.
Right.
That reminded me of James Butler.
Tommy, mate, you got any nominations?
I've been working this of the week, mate. I've been out the loop. I'm just going to actually catch up with the fights tonight, so...
Right.
Frotch for me.
Frotch for you. Steve, you're going for...
The singers.
Singers, right. Kurt, who you got, mate?
I've got to go for Richie Woodall, getting the fighters' names wrong and thinking they were completely different people.
Right, so... And Alex, who you going for, mate?
I'll go for Woodall, I suppose.
Woodall. Alright, I'm going to...
very close second.
Right, we need to try and get a winner this week then, so I'll need to try and think of...
Is that you on, Coogan?
Hello, am I on?
Fucking hell, it's in.
Alright, mate.
Is that you right, Coogan, is it?
Yeah, it took me fucking ages to get on it.
Oh, that's him. How you doing, mate?
Alright.
Aye, good to have you on. I was actually wanting to get you on another time, actually, so we could actually get a longer time, because we're running at almost, 2 hours, just about.
Yeah.
Listen, I've been listening to this for about 20 minutes, and whoever's talking, there's some quite sensible stuff, but whoever's writing, all the people writing on that conversation thing, fucking hell.
That's the listeners,
we
mate.
don't control the chatters.
That's what I was reading, and I was like, I'm going to go on here and get absolutely fucking slated, but,
Well, you will get some people on the chatting away and stuff, talking. So some will talk shit, some will just troll, etc. Anyway, mates. First off the bat, is that card in Liverpool pay-per-view worthy?
Listen, I said the same thing to someone on Twitter the other day. I feel that for this to have been a pay-per-view card, it could have done with another fight that was the similar level to Cleverly and Bellew, at the very least. So whether that was a Quick Galahad, I don't know, a fight that was on that sort of level to sort of call it a pay-per-view thing. But you got to realise, like, it's not my job to sort of keep moaning about the pay-per-view thing. Like, you know, I do understand all the gripes about pay-per-view. Like, don't think like I'm a complete idiot into thinking, oh, you know, but it's not my job to sort of go on there and keep on at him. I mean, I've spoke loads about pay-per-view with Eddie Hearn, and to be honest, he's going to say what he's going to say. It's his promotion, it's his card on the thing, so he's going to say it whether people like it or not. But it ain't. My views on it are really irrelevant, to be honest. Like, people asking me, I get tweeted about pay-per-view every fucking day. Every time I check a tweet, if I've tweeted about the football, someone will involve pay-per-view in it. If I've tweeted about I've gone to the fucking toilet, someone will tweet me about pay-per-view. And that's every fucking day. Is this going to happen every day leading up to the 22nd?
It's going to happen, mate. I'm telling you. People are pissed.
It will.
People are pissed.
What are they saying to you, Coogan? What are they saying to you?
Well, like I said, listen, the original talk about pay-per-view was always this. It was always, pay-per-view can only happen if it means that show or that fight wouldn't go ahead unless it's pay-per-view. That's what Eddie Hearn has always said. Now, what you ask yourself is, would this card have gone ahead without the money from pay-per-view? I don't know.
But Coogan, this is Rob Palmer here. Sorry to interrupt, but don't you think they could have spread this card? You could have spread 4 or 5 of these fights across other cards and actually massively improved the Sky product.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But it's just, listen, to be honest, it's not. I mean, it's Eddie because he's at the forefront of everything. But Sky obviously want to be putting on pay-per-view events to everyone's dislike, unless it's something which they think's worth putting pay-per-view on for. But a card with all their names on it, I suppose that's the way it's being justified as a pay-per-view. If you're looking at it from what everyone else is looking at it, how many 50-50 fights, which seems to be the main gripe about it, how many 50-50 fights are generally on the bill? Well, probably not more than 2 or 3 at tops. So
I'd say only 1, to be honest.
Well, I made this point earlier. You know, we know Groves is getting a massive payday for this. He's on really good money. Why couldn't they use the money that they're going to be paying Groves to put in, you know, better opposition with the other guys on?
He's not even a matchroom fighter, is he?
Well, no.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the Groves to Gale thing's a bit. That's not clear cut because Groves and DeGale are both mandatory for separate world titles. They're not going to be massive fights on this bill, are they? Let's have it right. DeGale's, I mean, Perryban's credible. Groves' opponent, not so much, but they're never going to be in huge fights on the 22nd when, you know, they're sitting there mandatory for titles. So
the thing is, you've got McDonald fighting the flyweight. This guy that they've got in for Scott Quigg, Quigg will smash him in 2-3 rounds. He's not that good. The last fighter, Shingle Wake, was a much better fighter than this Otka guy they're bringing in. Yeah, you just need to look at the betting odds. You know, the betting odds say it all. You know, it's not a competitive card.
It's not about it. Doesn't really matter that no one takes issue with Groves having an easy fight, or nobody has an issue with the Gale fight in Periban. The issue is that they're taking a bullshit product and putting it on pay-per-view. And I know what you said in your tweet the other day about it's only 15 quid, and if you don't want it, don't pay for it. But people pay for Sky Sports every month.
I pay for it. Listen, my Sky bill's fucking 90 quid a month. Listen, I buy, up until I was doing IFL TV, I bought every pay-per-view since I was about 18. I bought every pay-per-view. But now, I don't buy the pay-per-view because I'm at the show, so it's different. Yeah. But, listen, I completely understand like why people are moaning about it. And I think, deep down, Eddie Hearn probably understands why people are moaning about it. But, you know, listen...
Coog, he said, for instance, this fight couldn't be, the Bellew Clever fight couldn't be made without pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Can you expand on why he said that? Did he actually explain to you why it needs to be a pay-per-view, that fight?
Right, so Eddie Hearn says that Cleverly Bellew isn't a pay-per-view fight, right? He said that. It's not on its own a pay-per-view fight. Eddie Hearn's argument is, and like I said, I'm not saying he's right or wrong with it, I'm just saying this is what Eddie Hearn says. He says, It's the card. Now, so you forget about Bellew Cleverly for the minute and all the attention, because no one's even talked for the last, since it's been announced as pay-per-view, hardly anyone's talking about Cleverly and Bellew. They're all talking about the fucking undercard, whether, being pay-per-view. But don't forget, last year, Froch Groves, the first one, everyone, I'm not saying it was to the level of this, but were moaning about whether that fight itself was pay-per-view, and after the fight happened, no one really said anything, and they sort of took it for granted that a rematch would be pay-per-view. But beforehand, I don't know who remembers, but I remember it, for the first fight in November, loads of people were saying, hang on, this fight ain't pay-per-view, this is a domestic fight, blah, 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 even though it's for world titles, were saying that it weren't pay-per-view.
It's because Eddie, on your interviews, promised a monster undercard. Those were his words.
Yeah,
and then he didn't deliver that. That's the issue that I think with fans like myself and others have, is that we've constantly been promised these things via your interviews, and I think you do an amazing job for British Boxing, Coogan, but in these interviews, Hearn promises big things, and he's just not delivering on them. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, what are you talking about, the shows in general, or are you talking about pay-per-view?
I'm talking about the shows in general. I think in the first sort of 2 years that Eddie Hearn came into the game, the stuff he was doing was fantastic, and since then it's really slipped off. Things haven't progressed. If anything, they've gone backwards. And the reason for that, I think they're just hungry for these pay-per-views. They're just trying to, and this isn't a real pay-per-view. This is just microwaved stuff. They've just slung it all together. They've talked about Bellew v Cleverly's not a pay-per-view card. It's got to have a great undercard on it. Well, this isn't a great undercard. It's just a bunch of showcase fights. And then when you go on to regular Sky Sports, you got Brian Rose against a nobody. You got Callum Smith against a nobody. How's that going to grow the sport? Honestly, to grow the sport, you've got to take these casual fans that show up to one show a year and buy one pay-per-view a year and get them to be people that are going to be watching Sky Sports every single week. Get them to be people that are going to be going to 3 or 4 shows a year like the guys that are calling into this show do. And you're not going to do that. We fell in love with the sport watching Ben Eubank. We fell in love watching Macklin against Moore, not watching Ricky Burns steamroll some bloke from Latvia or Argentina in one round.
Ricky Burns isn't steamrolling anybody right now.
You know what I mean? That's what people are sick of. It's just, we were promised that we were going to start, when Matchroom got the exclusive deal with Sky, that we was going to get more 50-50 fights.
Adam Smith promised that,
exactly.
actually.
Not as many, and that pay-per-views would only happen when it's a necessity, and that the undercards for those pay-per-views would be stacked. None of those things have happened. The product is mildly better than it was before.
I think we really should be. I think we really should be talking to Eddie about this. And maybe Cougar's only the best person.
Yeah, listen. Effectively, I'm the same as you, except that I'm like the middle person in between who brings you his views or his thoughts or his opinions to you. That's all. Like, I don't have any interest in like financial gain or sort of whatever in Sky or whatever. We do our stuff on Box Nation, but I don't have any like. People go on about, like, I wrote that tweet yesterday, right? So my tweet yesterday was people going on about pay-per-view like it's like a mandatory. It comes out their account. And people going to me, oh, you're missing the point. I'm not missing the point. I completely understand the point. But people are moaning to me about pay-per-view, and I know why they're doing it, because they moan at Eddie, don't get response. It's like, the next best thing, I will moan to him, because maybe he'll bring it up in an interview. But, yeah. I mean, listen, I hear it all the time I read it all the time on Twitter from that side. I don't know listen, Eddie Hearn's a promoter. He's got to sell that show on the 22nd regardless of what. So I don't know why people are ultimately that surprised about him pushing the show, blah, 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 blah. So he's a promoter at the end of the day. He's the same as Frank Warren, same as anyone. Listen, Frank Warren's selling this card on the 29th, which is a great card. We know that Billy Joe Saunders and Chris Eubank is the marquee fight of the bill. You ask Frank Warren, he says that Chisora Fury is. Now, in Frank Warren's head, he surely doesn't believe that the hype round Saunders Eubank is that to what Chisora Fury will be on the 29th, because it's not. But Frank's still saying that the big fight on the bill isn't Saunders Eubank. He's saying that it's Chisora Fury. But he's going to say that because that is to him the big fight on the bill, because that's probably what's costing the most money. So I don't know why people are ultimately surprised about promoters bigging up their show. What's he going to come and do, Eddie Hearn? He's going to come out and go, no, actually, this isn't. I'm selling this as a pay-per-view card, but it's actually not a pay-per-view card. Listen,
I understand.
if he really thinks about the show, I don't know. Whether he's entirely satisfied with it, I don't know.
I understand he's got a job of a promoter and he's got to sell things, but it's the lies. It's making us charge more. He's saying, we're going to put this on the card. We're going to put Quigg against this opponent on the card. We're going to give it a stacked undercard. But it's not these things. Frank Warren can lie and say, Tyson Fury just always the lead event, but we're still getting these good fights. What Hearn's saying us is we're getting these, we're going to get this A fighter, B fighter, C fighter, and we're getting XYZ fighter instead. And it's
I understand that. I understand.
And people are pissed off with it because they keep saying, we're going to definitely get this title fight over here. We're going to get this fighter for Crawler. We're going to get this fighter for Quigg. And this is why people get irate with it. And I think Hearn definitely gets more stick because he's more in the public eye now. He's the one that's wanting to be out there on Twitter more. He's trying to engage with the fans a bit more. It's a good idea. But by putting himself out there, he's going to be open to this stick, especially when he's not delivering on the things that he's promising us.
Just stepping away from what someone said, who was it that said about the show, forgetting about pay-per-view for a sec, the shows in general. I mean, listen, they put
That was me.
Right, they put on, Matchroom put on in excess of 20 shows a year, which is great, alright? There's not going to be a banger every week, like every show isn't going to be a banger, but, I mean, look, the show in Hull the other day, right? I mean, I don't know I haven't listened to what you think about it, but they were matched well, like the 3 top fights, they were matched reasonably well. I mean...
I would say this year that the whole show was good and the Manchester show was good, but if you look at the London card, Ryder's opponent, why is that sort of fight on TV? If you look at the Leeds card, the Burns fight, the Rose fight, the fight with, what's his name, Callum Smith, those fights shouldn't be on TV. That's the sort of fights that we were told would be on Fight Pass and wouldn't be on regular Sky anymore. And if you'd taken a fighter like Jamie McDonnell and put him on that Leeds card, if you'd taken James DeGale and Periban and put that on the London card, all of a sudden, you've got good shows.
Can I just stop you there, right? Right, listen. Ricky Burns, Callum Smith and Brian Rose are very unlikely to fight on Fight Pass. So I don't know I don't believe Eddie Hearn's ever said that them fighters are going to be on Fight Pass. Callum Smith's one of his best prospects. Ricky Burns is a 2-weight world champion. Brian Rose is a world title talent. Regardless of whatever, they're still, what I've just said is true. They're not going to be fighting on Fight Pass. They are going to be on Sky, like fight night shows. So,
but not all on the same card, surely. If they're going to be fighting tune-ups, if they're going to be all fighting tune-ups, or they're going to be, coming back from their world title losses or rebuilding, don't put them all on the same card. We don't want to see that. Spread them out.
I think the thing that most people is it's always these undercards are always showcase fights. George Groves against nobody, James DeGale against nobody, Scott Quigley against nobody. You can understand we get somebody like Callum Smith who's still a prospect having fights like that, but there should be, at the top of the ball, there should be a lot more competitive fights, and the mismatch room names ringing through just now because it just isn't happening.
Do you know what? It's kind of like, listen, the excessive shows, I just know that there's not going to be... I agree, sort of... Alright, so if you've got 20 shows in a year, I would say at least 15 of those shows have to be some sort of on a competitive standard. Do you know what I mean? You've got to allow 1 in every 4 shows or something to be... just to turn out the way it does.
I'd actually say it's more like 3 and 4 shows now that are being a dud. And I'm not just saying that as a whinging boxing fan, because actually I've backed Matchroom for a long time and took a lot of stick over backing them. But the product just it's not good enough now. There's just too many mismatches, too many blokes coming over from Argentina. And then the main events aren't even what they're cracked up to be. And then when there are decent fights, they put them on pay-per-view. And with this card, they're putting crap fights on pay-per-view.
Coogan, is Eddie mentioned, or has there been any talk as to why Barney Francis has now had to get involved with this pay-per-view?
I don't really know a lot about the and obviously Barney Francis has involvement in what goes on. And to be honest, the ultimate say does come from Barney Francis ahead of Eddie Hearn. So, I said to you earlier on, it's like Eddie Hearn's like fronting it out as a promoter for Matchroom, and he's the one we listen to. We've never heard from Barney Francis talk about anything to do with pay-per-view. Do you know what? I'd love to fucking interview Barney Francis. It's like he's on my list with like Johnny Wish and Al Heyman. Barney Francis is one of them, because like Barney Francis is probably, I don't know, in a certain respect, probably better equipped to answer pay-per-view questions than Eddie Hearn is, in a way, because ultimately it does come from that. It does, he's the top man there, so it does ultimately, if Barney Francis says that this isn't a pay-per-view card and it won't be, then it won't be, regardless of whatever. So it does come down to the Sky thing, which is above Eddie Hearn, remember.
Coog, listen, we really appreciate you coming on. I mean, you're fronting up, as I says, some people are like, oh, he's going to duck and stuff like that. We're not going to abuse you in any sort of way, so don't worry about that. But on a light-hearted note, Rob's wanting his flag back from the Brook fight against Porter. Can you arrange for that to happen, mate?
Who's got that?
Eddie Hearn gave it to Kell Brook. He wants it signed and delivered back.
Let me give you some background, Coogan. I was at the show in Carson, and after the fight, I had a Union Jack with me. Hearn called for it to be thrown into the ring. Yeah. And then I spoke to him on Twitter after. He said to me, yeah, I'll get it back. I'll get it signed. Nothing. And now he's blocked me on Twitter.
What? Because you asked him
no. He's been giving him a lot of shit for the pay-per-view.
He's been blocked because he sees he's going to watch our stream.
Yeah, you're calling him a cock and that. That's why he blocked it.
I still think he should send. He told me if I don't have the flag, I'll send you something better. But so far, nothing's come in the post, and I'm bitterly disappointed about it.
Unless Kell Brook took that flag to Tenerife with him, I'll ask him where it is. I mean,
he probably used it to wrap up his leg.
That flag could have saved Kell Brook's life.
It could have done. Do you know what?
If it's got stains on it, I'm happier.
Had to go right on eBay.
Do you know what? Just on another note, when I was reading that chat, right, and you can give me your opinion about this as well. So someone, I think it was Paul McAllister, was writing that we're pro Matchroom, right? Correct? So
he said that, yeah.
Right. So do you, whoever's online now, do you believe that we are pro Matchroom?
No, I don't believe that at all.
I believe that you're maybe you're naturally more comfortable interviewing Eddie than you are maybe Frank Warren.
Yeah, I said that as well, Coog. I says the way you do the interview it probably gets more out of some people and stuff. I mean, I like the way you do your interviews. You kind of relaxed, lazy O, so to speak. Kind of laid back, etc. The Adam Booth stuff's quite good as well. When you get him on, he takes the piss, etc. I just think you feel more comfortable with guys like that than you do with maybe guys like Frank Warren, for instance. Where somebody's got to watch what you're going to say to him.
Do you know what?
I personally believe. I personally believe, Coogan, that you actually ask Eddie harder questions than you ask Frank Warren. And actually, if you're biased towards anyone, it's towards people other than Matchroom. That's my opinion.
Okay, well, listen. When we started in 2010, nearly four years ago. I Film London, as it was known then, didn't get really going until sort of the middle of 2011. When we first started doing what we were doing, I don't know who was following us from back then, but we was accused. It wasn't as big as it was then because Twitter wasn't as big and the channel wasn't as big, but people were going to us, oh, you're Frank Warren people. All you do is Frank Warren stuff, because 2011, Frank Warren was putting on the best shows. Like, he put on DeGale Groves, he put on Cleverly Bellew, the first fight. That year, Frank Warren was doing more stuff. The shift, I'm not saying in quality, I'm saying the shift in amount of shows since then has swung to Matchroom. They put on 20 shows a year. So common sense tells me that we're going to be spending more time around events, media days, whatever, around Matchroom. Plus, they've got the biggest stable. So, if Kelly Maloney come out tomorrow and announce a Sky deal...
she's already came out, mate.
I think so, yeah. If Kelly Maloney comes out tomorrow and took Eddie Hearn's Sky deal and had 20 dates, like between now and 12 months, we'd be wrapped around Kelly Maloney for the next year on a considerable time. It's not a case of, oh, we're pro this, pro that. Listen, when we announced that Box Nation thing, like, honestly, the amount of comments we got, like, oh, what's fucking Eddie going to say? It's nothing. What we do is nothing to do with Eddie Hearn, Frank Warren, blah, blah, blah. We've got our thing that we will continue doing with IFL TV, and we will cover whoever's putting shows on, whether that's Hennessy, whether that's Kelly Maloney, whether that's Frank Warren, whoever. The Box Nation thing, like, come about, is a great thing for us to have half hour on air every week. But, like people going to me, oh, isn't that going to upset? Like, people have come up to me and gone, oh, weren't Eddie happy about that? And I'm like, Eddie doesn't pay my bills. We get on, we've got a great relationship, and he helps me out in respect to travel and hotel expenses, which he's done for the last 3 years, which we're very grateful for. But we ultimately end up doing our own thing, because if I was in Eddie Hearn's pocket, would I go and do a half-hour slot on Box Nation's like TV every week? Probably not.
On that point, though, sorry to interrupt you, mate, but do you not feel you've got too much familiarity with Eddie then? Since he has helped you out with all these things, and he is a good mate to you. Do you not feel that might impact some of your, a biased approach towards him? Do you not feel that because he's a mate, you might be a bit, soft on him? And that's what a lot of people believe is happening. You're giving him a bit more attention, you're having a bit of banter with him, and I know that's your style, but do you not see how some people would see that? You're good mates with him, and it's going to come across that you're actually just, giving him all the attention.
You can't have that both ways. And so 5 minutes ago, I asked Eddie Hearn harder questions and whatever, and then, but that doesn't work the other way then. I can't, be then accused of being, too mate with him. Listen, I get on with Eddie, and we have a rapport in interviews. I'm not going to apologise for that, and I'm not going to tone that down in any way, because regardless of whatever, listen, you see Eddie Hearn's interviews, he's watched more than the majority of his fighters. People want to watch Eddie Hearn's interviews than the majority of his fighters, with the exception of probably maybe if you get a great interview with Froch or Brook or one of the top names. It's people watch his interviews, mine and his interviews, more than they do the majority of the fighters. And that's on a show in just normally or whatever. But I can't get accused of being too pally with him and then also asking him. Eddie Hearn has never said to me, I can't ask him a question. Do you know what I mean? He's never said to me, I've asked him stuff about pay-per-view, right? From the moment it was announced, I've asked him stuff about pay-per-view. I can't keep going on about pay-per-view in every interview. I like to, and because I know it gets watched, but I can't, every interview between now and the 22nd, I can't keep banging on about him, about pay-per-view every time. He's kind of said what he said about it. People don't like it, but that's what he said about it. But from my point of view, I can't ask him constantly about pay-per-view. And I ask him stuff that he doesn't know about. You know them Q&A things we do? Yeah. He's never ever asked to look at the questions. Have you seen some of the questions that have been asked, I've picked out to ask him? They cunt him right off. Some geezer was actually just basically calling Eddie Hearn a cunt. And I'm reading this out. Do you know how awkward this is? I'm sitting there, I'm going, Eddie Hearn, you fucking prick. Why have you done this? And I'm he's listening to it, and he doesn't say anything. He's well, they're not getting tickets for a start, but he'll answer whatever. He's such an open book. I'm trying to get that sort of same thing with Frank Warren in a way, but I don't interview Frank as frequent. I'm going to try and at least get to Warren's office at least once a month, because Frank, in the last 6 months, Frank has kind of adopted this approach of ask me anything. Yeah, I'll answer it. You might not like what he's going to say. You might not agree with what he's going to say. But Frank has, I've noticed this. Watch that last interview I did with him. I don't know if you've seen it. But, yeah. I mean, listen, a year ago, I probably wouldn't have dreamed of asking him about this printing posters first, signing contracts after. I mean, I've never heard anyone ask him that, to be honest. And I think I will ask him about it because so many people were talking about it on Twitter, especially around Saunders Eubank when the press conference happened and it come out that Eubank hadn't signed the contract. Leonard Bundu sending those tweets about the payment. I asked him about it. What is it that I'm not asking Frank Warren then? Because if there is something that's quite topical, I have asked him about it, and I don't want. The problem is, obviously, we had a few issues like legal issues this time last year, and I don't really, it's not my job to really push people to the limit where it's the stuff I'm asking or suggesting is becoming liable. Like, I don't want to get into that. Like, we're trying to promote like boxing, and I don't want to get into certain topics that could imply me as being, like I said, slanderous, libelous, defamation, whatever. But I think if there's stuff out there, you tell me now, if there's something specifically that you'd ask Frank Warren, well, tell me, then I'll ask him. Like, I don't have a problem. Like, I'm not going to ask him silly things, like I'm talking silly things without talking about it. You know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to ask him really ridiculous things that people are just interested in. But if there's something that I need to ask Frank, I will ask him it.
Does he actually preview your questions, Cook, before you do it? Does he actually ask to see your questions before you ask them?
Well, I haven't done a Q&A with Frank Warren ever. So we've never been in that situation where the questions are written down. The questions I ask him, I don't go up, like the 45-minute interview I did with him the other day, I didn't go to him, oh, well, Frank, I'm going to talk about this, and this. He's become, just recently, like in the last sort of few months, become a little bit more of an open book, as in, come down to the office. His office is about 40 minutes from me. I'll drive down there, and it'll be just like, the most he could ask is, what we're talking about today then? And I'll say, I'll give him a rough outline. So I'll go, we'll talk about that Saunders Eubank, we'll talk about this. But Frank's never gone to me, has never said to me, you cannot ask me about that, or don't talk about that, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to ask him absolutely ridiculous things. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to look to do a Q&A with him. Probably the next time I go to the office, I'm going to look to do a Q&A with him. But again, I will ask him sensible questions that, if people are wondering, blah, blah, blah. But the problem is, I had like 3,000 saying 800, however many emails from Eddie Hearn, and a lot of them are fucking ridiculous. Like, if you could, you have access to that inbox account and you read some of the things that people will ask Eddie Hearn. It's like, and I know I'll get that with Frank Warren as well. So I've got to be a little bit sensible about asking these questions, but I think that he's becoming more of a little bit of an open book. Like, ask him. Like, a year ago, like I said, I wouldn't have asked him about the Leonard Bundu thing. Leonard Bundu sending tweets about payment and things like that. I don't know, maybe a year ago I probably would have thought, I don't really want to go into that territory. But I did. I asked him the other day, he said what he said, and that was that. So people don't like his response. As long as the question is being asked, I can't really do any more than that.
Why do you think that is, Coogan? Why do you think Frank's loosened up a bit lately?
I just think what you got to remember is the age gap between Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn, right? Eddie Hearn has used Twitter, 200,000 followers to his advantage. Frank isn't even on Twitter, right? Like, the Frank Warren account has nothing to do with... When they send tweets, specific tweets to do with certain things, like they did with Peter Fury, that clip that went about of Peter Fury saying that the contract for Chisora Fury hadn't been signed. Yeah. There was a series of tweets that come from the Frank Warren Twitter. Now, Frank Warren has okayed them tweets to go on. Don't get me wrong. He's not going to... The people that work for Frank Warren are not just going to go, we're just going to respond to this. They would obviously have... Common sense tells you Frank would have okayed them tweets to go on there. But I just think that recently I've just seen... Frank just sort of half take a little bit more notice of the social media. Don't forget, he's been promoting for however many fucking years, right? He'd sell out a show however many years ago, all the big fights that he's put on, without the aid of social media. Now social media is so big in the sport of boxing, it's like getting to grips with it. And look at it, and Eddie Hearn's like, he's embraced it because he's of a different generation. I don't know, but I think he's starting to sort of see more the relevance of social media and YouTube and all these different things.
I think with Box Nation, they need the hardcore fans more than ever before, because we are the people that would subscribe to that channel. So he has had to embrace kind of speaking with fans.
You've got Bunchy's doing that though for him, isn't he? With the Box Nation stuff.
Yeah.
He tweets a lot as well. Coogan, just before we let you go, mate, listen, I actually want to try and get you back on at some other point, because obviously this was a ball out the blue. I wasn't expecting you to come on, actually, so if it's a safe, fair play for you coming on and fronting up. Mm-hmm. But I was just a light-hearted question. Have you ever heard of the Bellew of the Week segment?
I heard about it on this, like, a little while ago. I don't know what it is.
I was going to ask you if Tony Bellew actually knows anything about it, you know.
Can you just explain what it is first?
Basically, you know how Tony comes out with these kind of outlandish comments. He is quite funny with some of them, what he comes out with, but he does make grandiose, quite comments. So basically, what we do is we troll through some of the comments made during the week, for instance, funny comments.
Play him the intro.
Outlandish comments and stuff like that. So we just kind of like make an award.
By anyone in boxing.
By anyone in boxing. So we're making an award in his name and his honour. So we then give it to, I don't know, Frank Warren for saying this, or Eddie Hearn for saying that, or you for not asking the right question, or something like that, you know.
I think Coogan's won about 3 or 4 times, hasn't he?
Coogan, I think you've won about 6 or 7 times, mate, actually.
For what questions? What questions? I think if you have nominated me for this award.
No, I'm joking. What's that fishing rod? Put it back. No, I'm joking, obviously. But I'm just wondering if actually anybody knows, or if he's heard about it, you know.
No, well, I have heard about it now, and to be honest, what you can be assured, next time I interview Tony Bellew, I'll make him aware of it if he doesn't already know.
Ask him to get the Bellew of the Week.
You've got to play the intro for him, guys. You've got to play the intro before he goes.
Send it to him on Twitter.
I'll send it to him on Twitter, right. Because the thing is, I think what happened is, you did an interview with him, Coog, on ringside. I forget what card it was for recently. What card was it? Anyway,
after he beat Brudov, I think
it was the card when it was in Liverpool when Cleverly and Bellew both fought on the same bill.
No, he was ringside that day. He had the suit on because you were interviewing him at ringside with his suit on.
Yeah. So that was at
Cardiff, the Cardiff show.
Was Froch there as well?
I think he was. What happened was one of our listeners actually says to Tony Bellew about the Bellew of the Week segment. Apparently he just got and walked away, so I'm beginning to think maybe he is aware of it or something, you know.
Do you know what? I don't know, listen, I don't know. I know Bellew's Bellew, right? But Bellew's actually really alright. Out of all the boxers I know he says some things and he is how he is. But he's actually like, out of all the boxers that we've come across over the last 3 or 4 years, he is so, like, honestly, like, in Wales, it was like, when he done that presser, they kind of liked him. They didn't want to like him, but they kind of, like, took to him. He had so many, like, all the abuse he was sort of getting before from, like, the Welsh fans. He went on there and he had a bit of banter with one of Cleverly's lot, which was funny. And then afterwards, they was all like, he had more pictures done than, like, with Welsh fans than Cleverly did. It was like, honestly, I should have filmed it, really. He's actually alright, Bellew. I get on with Tony, but I think sometimes, don't get me wrong, he does come out with some stuff and he does say some things in interviews, of course, but
I think he wears his heart on his sleeve a lot, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he seems like he's a very passionate guy about the sport, but he doesn't have to talk some shit.
But listen, from my point of view, I want more Tony Bellews. I want more Lee Harrisons, more Tyson Furies, because...
No more Audleys, please, man. That guy's a fraud, son. You can't have him back in the sport.
Love Audley.
Blasphemy.
Alex.
Yes, he can.
Yes. Nigu. Never give up. Nigu.
Coogan, how close was Audley versus Kimbo for this card? Because that would have made it pay-per-view work.
Do you know what? I don't think it was very... I think that Eddie toyed with the idea of possibly putting one of them on it, and I think the more realistic option would have been Audley, because I just think you get into a whole new world with Kimbo. I mean, listen, I would have loved to have just seen that just from a curiosity point of view more than anything, but I don't really think Kimbo and Audley was really, really close to being made. I think it was just, it got tweeted, people seemed to sort of jump on the bandwagon of it and thought, oh, this would be great. But I don't really think Eddie Hearn really seriously considered putting that. But Audley could still be on the bill. So
they've got that Wembley date set next year, so maybe that's where they're going to put it.
It'd be more competitive than half the cards that's on there already.
That is a fact.
Do you know what with Audley? It's like, I don't know. Listen, I look at things a little bit differently. Like, from a fan point of view, blah blah blah. I watch some of these things and I just, I look at it from an interview point of view sometimes as well. Like, I like to interview Audley because I know that he I don't say he talks bollocks, but he's just like, after every defeat, it's kind of like, right, the journey again. I know people listen to it and go, oh, fucking hell, Audley, but I don't know. Them people in boxing like Bellew, Tyson, Audley, all them people. I just think they're whether people like them or not, they do bring more profile to the sport, whether you like it or not. So they do, and I just know from our view counter about what boxers are watched more than others. Sometimes with boxers, I've got to pick out a headline like a bit out of the ordinary to make people watch them because they don't. Not every boxer has that sort of outgoing talk bollocks personality, but boxing ultimately with boxers is a selling sport. When you're talking in press conferences, they're trying to sell the fight or big the fight up, and it's no different from Eddie Hearn. So whether people like it or not, that's just how they are. But then you get the flip side of someone who's someone a little bit more quiet, like a Ricky Burns was saying, who's probably never trash talk in his life, in his career, never trash talk, but doesn't get the attention of other fighters because of their mouth. Look at Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury literally just talked himself into a £5 million payout with David Haye. Like, he's like, when I'm in America, do you know that's the only fighter they talk about? They ask me about, like, the other American, like, people that do the same stuff as me, and even like the higher people, the people that write for the papers there, they just ask me about Tyson Fury. They go, oh, that Tyson Fury, man, is he really crazy? I go, yeah, he is. He's exactly how he is how he is. They're so fascinated by Tyson Fury, and Tyson Fury isn't on paper our best UK heavyweight, but he's probably the most talked about heavyweight. With David Haye off the scene, Tyson Fury's Britain's most talked about heavyweight.
What's the latest on David Haye? I know you interviewed him recently. What's happening there?
Do you know what? I don't know, because I interviewed him for about 25 minutes in Vegas, and David's very good at answering a question without really answering it.
Yeah, politician.
He's a clever guy.
Yeah, so he got me talking for 25 minutes and didn't really. I mean, I wanted to know who he's training with. Is he split with Adam Booth? When's he coming back? Now, he managed to sort of pad that out for 25 minutes without actually giving me any sort of answer. You can pick bits out of his thing and come up to your own conclusion. But listen, I assume that it's too late for him to come back this year because we're nearly in November now. Unless he's not. I don't see him announcing a fight this year. He's meant to come back in October, November. That doesn't look likely now. But people thought he might have been the name on the 22nd card. How would that have sat if it was David Haye coming back on the pay-per-view card rather than George Burns?
It's all about the opponent. We don't care about these names. It's about actual fights that are competitive and mean something. You could have put Crawler against Mitchell or something like that, and I would have bought into it. But if David Haye against nobody, Groves against nobody, not interested. And I think I speak for everyone when I say that.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, the money they're paying Groves, they could easily afford to pay for someone like Mitchell versus Crawler or something like that. So there's no excuse for it.
He's actually got a lot of work to do in order to try and regain the trust of the British boxing fans, because in that interview, Coogan, that he did with you, he kind of gave this kind of body expression that he just didn't give a fuck about the fans who forked out thousands of pounds worth of tickets and hotels, flights, travel, etc. Just that kind of body expression that says to me is, nah, I don't give a fuck, really, But I've got another question for you before I let you go, and I've got a request for you as well. Remember that interview you did with Kevin Johnson?
Yeah.
I want to see those pictures on your phone.
Do you know, I'll be honest with you, the picture, I'll tell you, it was of a girl called Katie Albert, who was she's an actress in America.
What kind of actress?
No. The normal actress. I'll tell you what, when I get off here, I'll post a picture of her on Twitter. I'll post the picture that he saw on Twitter. Like, that's the one that he was going on about. I don't really know that woman well. I've met her twice. I don't really know her that well, but I kind of, like, in the keeping of the interview, just, like, was like, yeah, that's one of the girls I know, just talking bollocks, basically, but he seemed to like her, so...
He's quite engaging character, actually, like him.
Do you know what? That'd be a guy. Do you know what I was thinking? Like, was talking about Anthony Joshua. I think he needs someone like him.
Yeah.
Like,
someone to take him rounds.
Sherman Williams would take him rounds. I'll tell you what, put that to Eddie Hearn. Sherman the Tank Williams will take Joshua rounds, I believe. He's only been stopped twice. He's been beaten 12 times, but he's only been stopped twice.
Dominic Guin as well, he'd be a good one.
I think Anthony Joshua now, obviously he's fighting Sprott, and Sprott's like bang up for it. From what I heard the other day, he's like right up for it. I mean, we probably can assume what's going to happen, but
yeah, he's getting smashed.
I think his next fight now, first fight of the year, I think he's going to be fighting early next year. It has to be a round giver. Like, it has to be someone that's going to actually, if he does stop him, it's going to be impressive. Do you know what I mean? Like, if he stopped one of them opponents, like we just mentioned now, in the fashion that he has done, then you have to start looking at him and thinking, well, he's stopping people that don't ever get stopped. So, but he's had 9 fights. You know what I mean?
I think if anything, they're going to move. I'm worried that they'll move him too quick. That's what I'm worried about.
It's their own fault if they move him too quick because of the way they're hyping him up. Yeah, again, you've got the point of promoters have got to promote a fighter, but the way they're hyping him up, the way they're saying that he could beat Tyson Fury right now, he could beat Derek Chisora right now. Yeah, he's fighting Michael fucking Sprott on the pay-per-view in a couple of weeks. You know, people are going to get annoyed when he's constantly fighting these guys. And as you said, he needs to get rounds in early next year. He needs to really show that he can last a distance for a start, because when he gets up to that elite level and he's fighting these top guys, if he wants to fight the Klitschko's, yeah, he might bang Klitschko out in a round, but he needs to be prepared to go the distance. He needs to be prepared for these things. And I'm critical of Joshua because I want to see him succeed. I want to see him against all types of fighters, tall fighters, rangy fighters, little short guys, little, stocky guys, southpaws, orthodox. I want him to fight the lot so he's ready to become a really good champion.
Tony Thompson's your boy, isn't he?
Yeah, Tony Thompson. Yeah, he's...
Get him over.
He's not the same guy that beat David Price, though. I mean, he's since gone on to lose fights to Solis.
Plus, he's abused his wife as well, so he maybe...
Do you know what, though? To be fair, right, it is Sky and Eddie Hearn that do the hyping for Joshua. Like, he never hypes himself up.
He seems a nice kid, eh?
Yeah. You listen to everything Anthony Joshua says. He's fight as it comes, whoever's put in front of him. But he doesn't hype himself up, like, at all. That's done by his promoters and Sky.
And Barry, did you see Barry's comments recently in the press? My God. Joseph Goebbels would be hard pressed to beat that.
What did he say?
He says he's got the right hand that Ernie Shavers. He's got the.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
You see that? Oh my God! You need to tell Barry that's deplorable.
It's true though. We said it on the pod after the fight, after Joshua's last fight. Eddie was in the ring and he was talking about this guy's going to be the undisputed champion or whatever. And he was, and I think Ed Robinson had mentioned that win had got him a ranking in one of the organisations. And Joshua was like, well, that's I don't concern myself for that. And so he seems he's level-headed. And like you said, he's his promoter doing it, and you just hope that he isn't saying too much before he's ready for it.
Yeah, I think the classic example is of, and it wasn't really like Frank Maloney doing it, but the David Price was literally billed as that is it. That's our future heavyweight champion and everything, and that ultimately is. I mean, that was a really bad year and really bad defeats for David Price, and we don't know whether David will ever, come back from that. So the danger of overhyping someone, because David Price was not saying overhyped, but there was so much emphasis before that Thompson fight about David Price. It was a cert that he would knock out Tyson Fury in many people's eyes, and it changed very quickly. But I still think David Price, I don't think he's going to be the same fighter after those two, but I think that he will have something to offer, but I hope he comes back. I like David, he's alright.
He seems a nice guy. I followed him for the amateurs, and I was quite vocal on Twitter about I always thought Tyson Fury would beat him, and obviously he had been stopped a few times in amateurs. But what I like to see by heavyweight, you need to see a heavyweight hitting the chin. Joshua looks good. You can see he's going to be brilliant in that. But until he's 10 rounds and he's hit, you just don't know, do you?
No.
Same with any heavyweight.
But you listen, right? You compare this now, right? So we're talking about Joshua after 9 fights, right?
Yeah.
Right. So he's knocked out everyone within 3 rounds, right? I mean, look. You look on the flip side to Deontay Wilder, who's had 30 something.
Exactly. You're right.
And beating everyone within the 4 rounds. And the best opponent Deontay Wilder's faced is what? Malik Scott, maybe.
Audley Harrison.
Or Audley. Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, now. Wilder's next fight will probably be against Stavern, and like the jump up in class between Stavern and everyone that he's fought is massive. Do you know what I mean? But that's 30 fights in. Do you know what I mean? We're talking about Joshua after 9 fights. Step him up. Deontay Wilder, and I don't know about Deontay Wilder. Like, you know, he's done what he's done in boxing, and people can say, oh, blah 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 blah. We don't know about Deontay Wilder until he's in with, you know, what is deemed as one of the top 5 heavyweights in the world. We don't know what he's going to be like. Listen, a good argument as well is like Kell Brook got to 30 odd fights and he hadn't fought anyone on the level of Sean Porter at the time. And it's kind of like you get to a certain amount of fights and you think you're thrusting these people in at the deep end. Do you know what I mean? Like, Kell hadn't faced a top 5 welterweight in his career, and then he went in against someone like the IBF champion without really that sort of preparation into that, and we didn't know about Kell Brook, whether he was going to go in there and fold, and it's the same with a lot of these fighters. But Joshua's had 9 fights. I don't really think that's the same. Like, he's been pro just over a year. He's had 9 fights in a year, so I don't think Baktov was the worst challenge for him in the world. It ended up being what it was. But I don't think on paper, beforehand, you look at some of the opponents that have gone the distance with Baktov and blah, blah, blah. I thought it was a half-credible opponent for Joshua, but it didn't turn out that way. But for his 9th fight, I didn't think Baktov was completely ridiculous. Just because he's dismantled him in a couple of rounds, you can't just, turn around and go, oh, well, that was a mismatch, blah, 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 blah. But
again, with Joshua, though, it's not the fact that he's, the level of opposition he's facing. I think that's fine, but it's the height that goes along with it. It's the style of fighter that he's fighting. It seems that all of the people he's fighting are at least 5 or 6 inches shorter than him. They're all either very intimidated by him or scared to throw a punch, or simply can't reach him to throw a punch. And I want him to fight a mixture of styles, even if it's down a level in skill terms. I want him to see him fight a bloke who's 6'7", just like him. I want to see him fight a southpaw and see how he deals with these different troubles and different, difficulties in his life. We say that he had a very short amateur career. He's only been a pro for a year, but if he wants to learn these things, he needs to learn how to fight these styles. He needs to deal with these things. And I personally don't believe blowing smoke up his ass the way Hearn's doing, saying that he's going to knock out Fury in 3 rounds and all this nonsense. Yeah, it appeals to the casuals, but it's not helping anyone. It's not helping him build up his career and become a better fighter.
Listen, let me just tell you, right? Eddie Hearn truly believes, this isn't just talk, truly believes that Anthony Joshua does beat Tyson Fury now. And
then make it happen.
But I know, but listen, it's kind of like, so this is what he says. He would beat him now, but in number of fights or being ready, he's not ready. Now, I don't completely understand that. Like, I do understand it, I don't understand it. If you're ready for someone, you should be ready to fight them, but he's saying that he would beat them now, but he's not ready. But
I think I
do get that in a way.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, if he says he's going to beat him now, it means he thinks he's ready. I mean, there's a young Japanese fighter there. He just turned 21, and his 4th pro fight, he beat the record of another Japanese fighter to become world champion. If you're good enough, if you're old enough or good enough, then you fucking get in there and you make the fight happen. I mean, it's one thing letting it marinate and all that sort of stuff, but if he says that fight, he can do it, move heaven and earth to make it. So I'll tell you one thing, that fight on the pay-per-view card, I would have paid for that if he had Fury and Joshua on that card in Liverpool. I would have paid for it.
Well, look at the likes of Rigondeaux and Lomachenko and Baturbiev as well as the Japanese guy you were saying. They're all getting stuck in there. If they're good enough, fucking do it. I understand that Joshua doesn't maybe have the amount of experience as them, but I countered that with what I was saying earlier. Get him in with fighters where he's going to learn the experience.
I saw about the money at the same time, though. These guys have not really got a following in that, so they're going to get matched hard early. Anthony Joshua's somebody they can build on, somebody they can push into, a big following in the future.
Joshua's mentality to his career so far, he keeps talking about these phases, and it kind of makes a little bit of sense. Look, by the end of the year, he would have had 10 fights, right? So that was his 10 opening fights, right? So now, next year, to be honest, the level of opposition and the different style of fighters he's got to face does have to change, and they probably will, to be honest. I think some of the opponents that, without mentioning any name, some of the opponents that Eddie Hearn has mentioned for his next fight next year, for the first one, I think that the opponents he's talking about will give Joshua rounds. Because you're talking about some of the people he's talking about don't get stopped at all. So I think next year, get his Sprott fight out of the way. People, saying about the Sprott fight. I think, to be honest, if Eddie Hearn wanted to see whether Sprott was still up for the fight after the Bakhtov fight. As far as I heard that Sprott is bang up for it, which he's going to be. He's bang up for that fight. So I think if Sprott didn't fancy it, he probably would have tried to have got him a more durable opponent or a different opponent. But I think count this year out and then from next year see what he does with his opponents. I think you will see a change in style of fighter, and like I said, people that are going to give him rounds. I personally think you will see that next year, and I hope you do as well. We do, rather.
I hope we do as well. Like I said, I'm a fan of his. I like him. I like the fact that he's got this charisma about him, this confidence about him, and he looks good when he's fighting. He's banging these guys out, and he looks strong, and he's going to be popular.
In that last fight.
So when you see somebody with these muscles, especially heavyweight, can they go the rounds? That's
the thing. You need to put oxygen into those muscles.
He was talking in an interview, I think it was with Coogan. He was saying that he has dropped a bit of weight and dropped a bit of muscle mass recently, so it does seem there's something they're aware of.
Yeah. Coogan, one last question, mate. I mean, we're running almost 3 hours here in the podcast, 11:15 at night. One last question before we let you go. Hopefully we can get you back on at some point as well. You worked security for Ricky Hatton, I believe, in the build-up to the Manny Pacquiao fight, is that right?
Yeah, I'm a killer.
Yeah. But are you the Sri Lankan Steven Seagal?
Apparently.
Yeah. What was it like? What was the atmosphere like in the build-up to that fight?
Funny enough, today, Ricky's got a new book coming out next year about, I'm not sure if it's about Las Vegas, but it's like stories from his life, and I think they're including like a segment of that through days in Las Vegas. And I did, the guy who's writing the book, he sort of done an hour interview with me earlier on to put extracts from that in the book. So
cookbook.
No.
The pub guide or something.
No, I think it's just stories. It's just like funny stories from Ricky Hatton's, just...
So like anecdotes.
Anecdotes, yeah. That's what it sounds like to me. But the Ricky Hatton thing, so I met Ricky in 2008, just like quickly. I met him in 2008. I went out with Ricky a few times, kind of ended up looking after Ricky a few times. Not from any sort of like violence or like angry people or anything. Just
make sure he gets in the taxi at the end of the night, kind of thing.
Yeah, and so I probably did that about 5-6 times in Bristol, in Manchester, in London, a few different times, and then about 2 months before he went out for camp to Vegas for the Pacquiao fight, which would have been 2009, early part of 2009. He just asked me to come out there with him, and it weren't like I bigged myself up as a Hatton security, because why wouldn't I? For fuck's sake, do you know what I mean? Like, do I want to be Ricky Hatton's driver? Do I want to be his lunch getter? No, I want to be his fucking security. Do you know what I mean? I want to be his Ricky Hatton's bodyguard. So that Ricky Hatton didn't go, oh, get Coogan because he's the best the best man for the job to look after me. He'll keep me safe and all that. I went out there with him just to really keep him company. He gets bored a lot of the time as well. He's out there on his own. There was only like about 3 or 4 of us out for about a month, and I was just with him all the time. That's all it was. Like I said, I just gave myself really the tagline of Ricky Hatton's whatever. I just made sure that he got to where he got and he had company, and just that was really what it was.
How was his mood when he started tapering down in the camp? Coogan, did he give you an indication that he had overtrained or that for the fight?
Do you know what the camp, like looking back on it now or looking back at it after the actual camp had happened, I'd never been watched sparring at that level. Don't forget all this stuff I'm doing now. I wasn't doing it back then. I'd know, there was about an 18-month gap in between my stuff with Ricky and when we started doing the I Film London stuff. But I'd never seen sparring at that sort of elite level. And from the first week, listen, it's not my job to give opinions about whether Ricky's looking good on sparring. I was just there because I was there. I wasn't there to voice my opinion about anything to do with training or sparring. But that camp was just, the whole thing with Floyd Senior was just it was a nightmare. And then Ricky Hatton really produced very little good sparring sessions. I think.
Is this with Lara? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Erislandi Lara, not really. I mean, this was like, 2009, 5 years ago now. And no one really, like, Lara was just sort of, wasn't really on the scene then. But he was getting the better of Ricky in sparring. And it was like, I was thinking to myself, and I was watching sparring session. I watched every sparring session, like, throughout the camp. And I was thinking to myself, is this like, this ain't, I'm just watching it from like a fan point of view. This don't look right. And then there was all the problems with Floyd Senior, and funny enough, I was telling the fella earlier on, like Lee Beard was there, and
Lee's apparently trained him for most of that camp, hasn't he?
Yeah, well, Lee Beard was like really got Ricky through the camp, because the stuff with Floyd like didn't look like it was working out. So Lee and Ricky were sort of kind of doing their own thing as well on top of what he was doing with Floyd. So he was definitely like, I'm not saying he was overtrained, but he felt like he was being overtrained by Floyd Senior, but then he was also doing stuff with Lee Beard, separate to the stuff with Floyd. And I remember having a conversation with Lee Beard, and I was talking to the guy who was writing this book earlier on. And 2 weeks before the fight, I was out with Lee, and Lee said to me, and I remember it word for word, he said, what do you think of what you're watching of Ricky? And I said, well, listen, I ain't an expert. I'm just saying he don't look like he's sort of sparring particularly that well. He said, look, if I had my way, I would pull Ricky out of this fight now, because he's going to get knocked out, and he's going to get knocked out early. This is what Lee Beard said to me 2 weeks, and I was like, really? He's like, yeah. He said, if I listen, there's nothing wrong with Ricky. He's not like injured or nothing, so this is kind of irrelevant. But if I had my way, I would say to him, I would pull him out of the fight, because believe me, Coogan, he's going to get knocked out, and he's going to get knocked out early. And he said this to me, and I was like, and then look, and he was bang on right with everything he said. He just said Ricky ain't in a good place. The camp has gone terribly bad, and ultimately ended up what we saw in 2 rounds. So,
what was Senior doing? Yeah. What was he doing for most of that camp if it was just a complete disarray?
Do you know what it was? One of the main reasons why there was kind of a thing between Ricky and Floyd is because Floyd was late. Like, out of a week, I reckon Floyd was probably late to training. Like 3 times in a week, and I'm not talking about 5-10 minutes. I'm talking hour, 2 hour. Honestly, it was quite, and it was happening regularly. And I remember there was one time where we used to watch the 24/7 program round Floyd Senior's house. So when it aired, we'd go round there and watch it. And there was one episode where, I don't know if you remember, but Floyd,
the fast food joint and that.
Yeah. Going through the drive-through, right?
Yeah.
And so, bearing in mind, Ricky's reportedly paying Floyd in excess of $1 million, right? Now, it comes on, and the 24/7 try and make a little joke, not a joke out of it, but they're like, Floyd's late for training again. Floyd's going through the drive-through, and we're all watching that together. So they're thinking, like, we don't know that's why Floyd's late, because he's stopping at drive-throughs and shit like that. We don't know. I'm not saying that was every time. I'm just saying that was just that for that time. But it was really uncomfortable because we're all Floyd's in here, Ray, Ricky, Matt, everyone's watching this episode in his house, and he's kind of driving through the drive-through, and they're doing like a 3-4 minute thing on what he's ordering through the drive-through. So
I got the impression for that 24/7 that Floyd thought that it was really about him and Freddie Roach and about in their beef, you know. That's what I took for that.
Yeah, I mean that was ongoing throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
Listen, you know what? Listen, Freddie's not as much as obviously Floyd, but you know what Floyd Senior is like. He's like, he
He's never seen a camera he doesn't like, because
you know, he's just one of them trainers. It's like, you know, he does what he does with his fighters, but then that camera side of it he's prone to. So I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm saying, I was funny enough today, I was talking to Tom Chaney, right, and because our Box Station show this week is a second part to the trainers, and it's weird because you talk to certain trainers and they've got no like agenda, or they've got no interest in interviews or being on top tables, and they've got no interest in it. When I was talking to John Pegg the other day,
Gallagher's one of those.
Who's that?
Joe Gallagher's a bit like that. He's not interested in talking to anyone or, promoting.
Listen, Joe is how Joe is. Like, we can't doubt that Joe's commitment and his hard work towards his fighters, because he is committed to his fighters. But Joe also likes to have his opinion, so that is what it is. But then I'm talking to John Pegg and like Tom Chaney today. And a lot of people don't know who these guys are. I doubt half the boxing fans, I'm not talking about hardcore boxing fans, I'm talking about just general boxing fans, would have a clue who Tom Chaney was. And I'm talking to them today, and it is refreshing. And John Pegg the other day, and because they're going to me like, they're just so out of the limelight, it's a joke. Like I said, and the work they do, especially John Pegg, like, he's so known like within boxing circles, but no one really is, he's not known on any sort of outside of the hardcore boxing fans who John Pegg is or who Tom Chaney is. But, I mean, Floyd Senior is just one of... But it comes down to the American thing, isn't it? A lot of the American trainers are like that anyway. Yeah. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying that's how they are. So, But that whole camp was just... It was a bit surreal. Like, the whole camp was just a bit surreal. And then after the knockout, I stayed in back. I was meant to go home on a Sunday. Bags were packed, and went up to say bye to Ricky in his apartment. And he's like, him and Jennifer are like, can you stay for an extra week? I'm like, bear in mind, I was going home. I've been away from my missus for like 7 weeks. I was like, I want to go home. And ended up staying in Vegas for another, I think it was 8 days. And like, listen, that's where I fucking earned my money, going out there with Ricky in that 8 days. My God. My God. Like, you, honestly, I've been out with Ricky before, but to actually be in a sort of looking after him capacity, like, he lost it for that week. And then that was the start of his whole depression thing, really, wasn't it, for the next however long? That was... as a direct result of that Pacquiao defeat, he went off the rails. So it's a shame, really, because Hatton, like, the reason why we all love Hatton, and like, not even him in the ring, but just Hatton in general, why everyone loves Hatton, is his downfall at the same time, isn't it?
Yeah.
How he is, it's a shame.
Do you think he's a bit underrated now, Coogan, than what was at his prime?
Who, Ricky?
Yeah.
What? How do you mean?
Well, just see, like, you'll talk to fans and that, like, see, like, a fantasy fight, who would win Ricky Hatton against C Fighter X, and I always think Ricky's a bit underrated now. I don't think he was ever a seen fighter after Costa Azul. I thought he struggled to do the rounds in that after that fight, but his prime, like in that fight and before, I think he was a serious fighter. But
Coogan, sorry,
I think he's become a bit of a joke.
Coogan, I think we'll need to get you back on, mate, because Mixler only allows us to record for 3 hours, so we're going to get kicked off shortly. But it's been really good having you on. Hopefully we can get you back on as well. Maybe it's, I don't know, next week sometime.
Yeah, that's fine. That's no problem.
Amazing stuff. Thanks, dude.
No worries,
Cheers,
mate.
Thank you.
All right, no problem.
All the best, mate.
All right.
Cheers,
Cheers.
Coogan.
Sorry about that, guys. I just the Mixler cuts just let me know there. Mixler only lets you record for 3 hours. We don't know if what will happen if we go past that, if it will stop the live broadcast and fuck up a recording at the same time for iTunes. Guys, very briefly, who won Bellew of the Week this week?
I nominated Richie Woodall. I think he deserves it.
Woodall.
Carol Froch.
Singers.
Eddie Hearn.
Steve, Alex.
Singers, the national anthem people.
All right.
Pauline McAllister for his horrible views on Coogan, that lovely man.
Right, I'll vote up. I'll put up. Who did you vote for, Kurt?
Woodall.
I'll put Woodall, even though I never heard him. So well done, Mr. Woodall. Now there's only one card next week, guys. Well, the Eurosport card on Friday, which is pretty shit. The only fight coming up in Showtime is the Tomoki Kameda against Alejandro Hernandez. And Andre Fanfara fights on that card as well. So next week we're going to be leading a discussion for the top 5 UK fighters of all time. So I want the panel to start thinking. You've got a week to think about it, or you've got until Sunday to think about it.
I've got a list. Good
stuff. We're running out of time. I'd like to thank the panel, Kurt Ward, Alex Morris, Steve Williams, Irish Boxing Review, Tommy Allen, Rob and Paul for coming on, Coogan Cassius as well. I've been your host, Andy Patterson, and we'll see you on Sunday. All the best.
Audley Harrison to beat Kimbo.
Carol Froch, Cocknose.